Hello out there. Welcome back to TableTalk, Discussion and Discourse. I, as always, am your host, Alejo, aka Grade on 95.
I, as always, am your second host who has promised to bring you bits at the beginning of every single one of his intros and fails every week. Sneaky Adolf.
This is true. And I am your ghost host, the host with the most.
Ooh,
Boo.
nice.
And
Ghost
I don't
host.
even know where the fuck that came from.
Oh, that was good. I like the ghost host
Oh.
thing, I'll be honest.
Yeah,
Ghost host,
yeah.
host with the most.
You really
And-
became the host
and
with
I
the
con-
post.
And I constantly boast. Fuckers. Okay. We're talking Call of Cthulhu and I'm fucking excited. It's
You know
great.
what? You know what? To that, I'll raise a toast.
What'd you say?
I said to that, I'll raise a toast.
Oh.
mhm.
And I guess for breakfast I had toast.
Nice. Yeah, toast. Good. Yep. Before we get
toast is toast.
Before we get into the topic today of Call of Cthulhu, and we have two videos that are here, and I don't know how they'll go because the first one is I watched it and I had like one or two things that I was like, maybe it's got something to talk about there or something, but the second one is more of a general kind of concept video, which is going to be interesting, but it is definitely from somebody who does more Cthulhu stuff, I think, because their channel even references it. So, but before we get into all that, just want to say, hey, thanks for joining the Discord and all the new follows to the Twitter and all that. It's been cool talking with people and hanging out. So
Yeah.
nice.
When you're in the Discord, I can like scroll through it and watch you at a safe distance. And then pop out. I can do the boo thing.
Rest assured, you are now in the Cool Kids Club.
It's true. It's really but it's super cool.
Not like in Stranger Things.
Yeah, it's not. It's not like that. No.
Yeah.
Um.
Not like that. Not at all.
But yeah.
Because we actually know that you needed more than the 13 to fucking kill Demogorgon.
Every time brings me
Every
pain.
time.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great.
Except for when I mention it and I get to bring pain to others.
Exactly,
That's when
right.
It brings me immense joy.
Yeah.
But yeah. Unfortunately, my internet seems to be fluctuating, which is really fun for this. But hey, it'll be great. Anyway, let us begin with a video from Don't Stop Thinking, which is Call of Cthulhu better than Dungeons and Dragons? And full disclosure, I have watched this before, and I think it's pretty good. It's definitely like more of a. It compares, but it doesn't answer the question, right?
Well, to be fair, the question has no answer.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I was gonna go into. It doesn't have an answer. It is definitely personal preference.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to look at and compare the two, I think.
Yeah.
So.
And it's also fun to wonder about, is your fun wrong?
Yep. So here we go.
The Player's Handbook. Everything a player needs to create heroic characters for the world's greatest role-playing game. World's greatest role-playing game. Is it really? Kept you waiting, huh? Hey everyone, CJ here, back with a brand new video, and this time I'm diving into the depths of cosmic insanity by comparing two of my most favorite tabletop role-playing games, Dungeons and Dragons and The Call of Cthulhu. Oh yes, I can already imagine what the comment section would be like. Sanity roll please. Anyway, let's just get onto it. I haven't heard the intro for ages.
He has a 38 sanity?
Oh yeah, Also, I've
Jesus.
got a big announcement to make later in the video, so keep watching. Intro.
So yeah, before we go too far, quite a fan of the little graphic that popped up of the sanity roll thing.
I feel like I kind of want one of those.
Yeah, no, exactly,
Like
right?
for general usage.
Yeah, it'd be super cool. Yeah, I mentioned this to the guys before. This guy is super into tabletop stuff. He seems very passionate, which is something that love to see.
Yeah, I've seen his video on Warlocks.
Oh, okay, cool.
And I think there was also one he did of like a monk that was really good.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
I have actually never heard of him before.
Yeah, well, I watched a little bit of his diving into 7th edition of Call of Cthulhu, which is interesting, because he just lays it all out, which is really helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Bro.
Also, this intro is sweet.
Yeah,
That's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
I like it.
Before I get to the main point, here's a quick primer on D&D and Call of Cthulhu. I am sure a lot of you know what Dungeons & Dragons is. It's that game that lets you seduce a dragon with a roll of a dice, hunt halflings, and roleplay murderous hobos, among other fun things. It comes under the classification of tabletop role-playing games. The Call of Cthulhu is also a tabletop role-playing game, based on a short story written by H.P. Lovecraft. Like D&D, it is also played by players who roleplay characters and a game master who tell the story and create encounters. But that's as far as the similarities go. D&D focuses on completing quests, fighting monsters, and experiencing your character's growth through their hero's journey. They will get progressively more powerful and
monsters anymore.
Yeah, this is definitely, yeah, this is the thing, right? He talks about a few.
This is dated. You got to remake the video.
Right.
Get new art.
He's got a few points here that I was like, oh, that's cool that Wizards did that. Oh wait. Oh no.
I guess they didn't do it anymore.
Well, there's a few things in there that I'm just like, oh yeah, good job, old Wizards.
When I scroll through 3.5.
Exactly, right? Like,
I don't know if you guys are getting it as well, but there's like on the bottom bar where it shows more recommended videos. He's got one D&D Isekai campaign.
I don't have that up because I clicked that off, but
oh, okay. That sounds actually kind of interesting. But anyway, that's
yeah. He has a couple of videos that are like the origin of Isekai-ish thing, or diving into where it came from, which is interesting as well. So yeah,
wish we could dive into where it would go, like when it stops.
Do you not like Isekai?
I like Isekai. I just think there's too many of them.
Okay, all right.
There's so many of them now.
Yeah, that's fair.
It is an okay initial concept.
Yeah.
Got oversaturated.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because
that is fair.
I love Shield Hero. It's one of my new favorite anime. But God, stop with like that's. It's like every season there's like 2 isekais. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And Konosuba's awesome.
It's because everyone wants that escapism, but they also want to see other people go into that escapism and then get stuck there.
They want to have fantasy without having a main protagonist.
That's why I like
no idea that he's in fantasy.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I really need to get into Dragon Maid is because it's basically reverse isekai. I like that.
Dragon Maid.
It's where dragons are in the human world.
Yeah.
They have to adapt to human life.
Yes.
I saw that
like that
a few years ago, and it is adorable.
Yeah,
yes,
I watched
seen so many clips.
I watched like 10 episodes, and I don't know why I stopped because I really liked it.
Yeah.
My favorite one is the dragon that becomes an MMO player.
And then at the moment, I just started Stardust Crusaders, so I got to get through that first.
Ooh.
I should really start watching anime since we have all this time on our hands, but
yeah, right? Anyway, we're completely
anime
off topic.
podcast.
Yeah. God damn it.
More powerful, and you get to feel like you're on top of the world when you eventually take down that Tarask.
Good luck.
Call of Cthulhu, on the other hand, is a survival horror mystery game featuring cosmic Lovecraftian
That's
horror.
awesome
The
artwork.
players get to roleplay mundane characters in 1920s Americas. So you can be a flapper, sailor, industrialist,
Doesn't
or
have to be
whatever.
Americas.
There are
It's true.
Doesn't have to be America.
It doesn't have to be America, no.
No, he'll go into a few other things. So, well, no, he goes into a few other time periods, but you're right. I think honestly, for us at least, it's mostly America because that's mostly what we know.
It's
right?
just because we're most familiar with it.
He also does bring up another point later on, which is interesting that I didn't know. So we'll see.
I don't know about you, but I seriously dig the artwork on these characters here.
Yeah,
This looks fucking excellent.
Yeah,
like really.
I like it. He outsourced, I think, for these.
Yeah.
I think
That's kind of what I figured.
Mm-hmm.
But
are
man,
scenarios
I
and
love that.
third-party supplements that let you play in other time periods, like the Second World War or the Vietnam War era. But classically,
Oh, that's Delta
the
Green.
game
That's
is
technically
set
not
in
Call of
Prohibition
Cthulhu.
Yeah, well, so
I mean, it's set in the Call of Cthulhu universe, and it uses the same rules. It's just
Exactly.
not technically the same
right.
game.
It's
basically like a clone.
right.
But
It's kind of
don't worry. Delta Green is awesome.
yeah.
Don't
Yeah,
worry.
I was gonna say
So-
it's technically
so then
splitting
how
hairs.
Does it differ?
Yeah.
Is
Because-
it not made by the same people?
Yes, it's not made by the same people, and instead of playing investigators, you play as agents underneath a government organization sent to deal with these mythos threats.
Yes.
Gotcha. So it's the Pathfinder to D&D.
Pretty much.
Yes, absolutely.
And I believe it kind of adopts a little bit of the Pulp Cthulhu rules, where you have more maximum sanity and more hit points. But other than that, it's pretty much exactly the same.
Yeah.
More combative.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely more. Well, it can be more combative. Yes.
Yeah.
Because you're definitely more able to take on threats, but there's still the whole sanity and everything. Like there's.
Yeah.
I watched a 3-hour like one shot of Delta Green actually that was pretty interesting just to see the thing in play. And you don't have to do the combat. Like
No.
not at all.
Yeah. No.
Just like Call of Cthulhu. So
Yeah.
I think, like you said, Pathfinder to D&D. Although I would say Pathfinder is still very much like you're still the heroes and stuff doing that thing, whereas this is a little bit more of a power up, like Delta Green is, compared to Call of Cthulhu. But yeah.
Era 1920s. Usually, the objective for the players is to solve mysteries connected to overwhelming cosmic horrors that operate in ways beyond mortal reckoning. Investigation and role-playing is the main focus of the game. There is combat, but it is completely lethal. It is usually best avoided unless necessary. But even if you manage to get your backside out of the trajectory of hot lead, you will have to contend against the creeping influence of insanity-inducing horror, which will pull you along the downward spiral of irrecoverable madness, as your sanity points drips down to zero. Fundamentally, these two games provide diametrically opposite experiences.
Yes.
Dungeons and Dragons lifts you up and indulge your power fantasies, while Call of Cthulhu drives you down the dark valley of despair. Until you thought that all hope is lost, you find sweet release. If you're any good at the game, it won't
die.
come in the form.
Yeah, I was gonna say that is sweet release.
Yeah, that is
You know what? Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
That's fair.
I was gonna say.
that's a really, really good way to put it. Where D&D builds you up, and Call of Cthulhu shoves your face into the ground.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, because so I would also say that you could have it be both ways. For D&D, I don't know if you could really do it for Call of Cthulhu, in the sense of bringing you up.
No, I think you could actually in Call of Cthulhu if you don't make sanity as punishing, and do what you can to allow investigators to survive as long as possible, which will invariably result in the skills that they use they get better at to the point where they become like gods at those skills. Like you could definitely do it.
Yeah, I guess so. It would change.
Give give them more hit points and sanity.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty much just down to that.
Yeah.
And then pray that your players are smart.
The
And
thing.
don't go trying to fist fight a Zhagoth.
What do you
You
mean?
know, the player is always a free radical.
Yes.
That is
in
true.
Any sort of plan.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, wouldn't that would change the tone of Call of Cthulhu games
It would.
a
Oh, yeah.
lot.
That's why there's Pulp Cthulhu. So
Oh,
that
okay. Well, there you
instead of Call of Cthulhu being the investigative
Mhm.
horror game, Pulp Cthulhu is basically like The Mummy with Brendan Fraser. It's that because
Oh,
that's
yeah.
it's
Okay.
exactly that, and it's
Okay.
great.
So,
But
so
I'm personally more of a fan of Call of Cthulhu
Sure.
than Pulp.
so then I would say a good comparison to that would be D&D using the supplements that make it more like Call of Cthulhu in the sense of like Heroes of Horror from 3.5, where it added the taint system, which is basically sanity in a way, or honestly just doing a sanity system, because I think there is actually in the DMG for 5th edition there's a sanity system in there.
I would have to look for it. I believe you though.
Yeah, you shouldn't all the time. But I think there's something there. I remember reading it somewhere.
I think I've heard of people talking about a sanity system.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay.
Sure.
Anyway,
Swift death or insanity. If you want me to use video games for comparison, Dungeons and Dragons is like Final Fantasy back when it was actually good. And Call of
Very
Cthulhu is
much
like
an opinion,
Resident
but
Evil with less guns and better fashion sense.
so
We talk about Wesker's got a fucking.
he's got a great trench coat and glasses, dude.
He has a
yeah.
wonderful fashion
He
sense for an
doesn't
undead
teleport.
abomination.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well then that just makes everything
Doesn't teleport.
He just goes really fast.
Really fast.
Really fast.
And it comes to a sudden stop.
Oh.
Exactly. So it's not teleport. He's just really in control of his body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. He can. Oh man. Oh god.
Yep.
He can go from literally outracing bullets on a wooden floor to just like stopping and oh god.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm. Yep.
Physics.
That's the thing that I have slight issue with the use of Resident Evil as the comparison. It's
because
way too like Resident Evil gives you
Resident
so
Evil's
much
not
power.
investigative.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it gives
I
you
think the
so
only
much.
reason why he did that is just going for like the lowest common denominator of
I
video games,
suppose,
just to
yeah.
help
I would-
people understand and maybe.
I would say something that would be that much so would be more like an Amnesia.
Yeah,
Right? Like,
it
that-
would definitely be Amnesia.
Like, and all people know Amnesia, right?
True.
Like, Amnesia's pretty popular. It doesn't give
pretty
you
great.
that combative element, I guess, so it's not a perfect comparison.
But I mean, well, here's the thing: it doesn't give you the combat,
Mhm.
but you're not really supposed to want to do combat in Call of Cthulhu.
That
anyway.
is true. That is true.
Or at least against monsters. Against cultists, you can do it.
But again,
But-
yeah, you can still, right? Like that's the deciding factor. I actually am curious now. What would be a good comparison there?
Could be Penumbra Overture. That one lets you
Oh!
do combat.
Yeah. Okay. I still have that on my
I'm
wish
looking
list.
Through my Steam library right now.
No, but
Yeah,
Penumbra is a great
Mm,
one. I think.
yeah.
actually.
because, I mean-
I've never heard of it.
Made
Oh,
by
okay.
the same people who did Amnesia. They did it before. It just wasn't as
Oh.
popular.
Interesting.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to.
Amnesia
actually-
was the one that fucking blew up, but Penumbra
Yeah.
over there's two of them actually. There's Penumbra Overture and then Penumbra Black Gold or something. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah. No, I was gonna make a different comparison as well, but then I thought about it. And then for the for the D&D one, sure, Final Fantasy is fine.
Because I mean it's fantasy.
It's
why
fantasy.
not
It works.
mention the Elder Scrolls though?
Yeah, that would be way better a comparison, I would say.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It would be.
Final Fantasy. I mean, even just putting a dig into Final Fantasy being
Yeah,
bad
why
now.
6? Why not 7?
I mean, 6 is fine, but it's definitely not. I would say it's more Eberron than it is like classic D&D, right?
Oh my god,
Because of the Magitech and stuff, right?
Oh
Uh,
god, guys, you sound like such nerds.
Yeah, well, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, I was gonna say. How many episodes have we done? So this is 23.
I know. I just thought that was super funny. Where it's
Yeah,
like,
no, I know.
Final Fantasy VI is more Eberron than what I'm like. Oh,
That's fair. That's fair. But anyway,
yeah.
Let's continue on.
Many of you who are familiar with D&D but not Call of Cthulhu might be from America, US of A, where D&D is synonymous with tabletop RPG. Even though both these games were created in America, in European countries, like Poland for example, or Asian countries like Japan, the Great Old One is the king of tabletop RPGs.
Really?
Yeah,
it
apparently.
is popular because it offers things that are unique and different to other tabletop RPGs.
Ah.
Even if you're a die-hard D&D fan, you should really try CoC.
You should.
But before we go into conciliatory mode, let's pit these two bad boys against each other and see which one deserves the crown of the best.
If you think about it, though, it's quite ironic that the US chooses the game that doesn't have guns in it.
Oh yeah.
And isn't based around Western civilization.
Yeah, that is interesting.
It's probably well. There's that weird dichotomy where, like, in a lot of and at least you see it all the time in like a lot of Western RPGs. There's usually like a Asia area.
Yeah.
Like in WoW, Pandaria.
Yeah, WoW had it, and back in 3, they had Oriental Adventures. That was that whole thing of like,
and so cultures have this.
Has it with Akavir.
Cultures have this weird. They're enamored with other cultures. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's probably why.
It also comes down to an escapism thing too. Like,
yeah, I don't think many Americans want to go into the 20s for escapism. Usually,
yeah,
right? Because they're like,
"Hey, do you want to play a game with me?" Yeah, alcohol's illegal. Damn it.
Yeah,
that, and like, hey, do you want to just be in real life where we are right now?
No.
But
Would you
rather not.
New York? No.
Well, but it's really fun
game.
though.
Here's the game. It's 2020. You're a cop.
Okay.
Have fun.
Oh no. Exactly, right? Like
Murder Hobo the game. Yeah. So
but yeah.
Let me go take a shower after that one.
Alright.
Of the best. To properly compare these two games, we need bullet points. Ah yeah, nothing gets your blood boiling like a hardcore list of bullet points, eh? Let's start with the themes. D&D is a fantasy adventure. You get your elves, dwarves, and dragons, and you can shoot great balls of fire out of your fingers.
That's great
Classic
artwork.
CoC is set in our world in the roaring 20s when style and glitz dominated. Meanwhile, the pernicious forces of cosmic horrors lurks beneath. It is a combination of the familiar and the exotic past. This game also officially lets you play a hobo, so I would give that an extra point. To be fair, in CoC, you have full customization options, and you can be any occupation you want. D&D has limited number of classes, but they each provide unique playing experiences. D&D has
So, before we go too far from that, yes, there are many class options, but he doesn't go over the backgrounds, the ability to make custom backgrounds, even like any of the stuff that you can do. I assume he's going from just raw.
Yeah, probably.
But
yeah, almost definitely.
But still, it's definitely. I would say D&D itself is more open to homebrew than anything. Well, sorry, not anything. I would say it's more open to homebrew than CoC, right?
Well, you do run into the issue where D&D by its nature is more restrictive in terms of what you can do. Like there are set guidelines what you can and can't do, and those are what we call classes.
Right.
And because Call of Cthulhu just lacks that.
Mhm.
It has more inherent customizability, and as such, homebrew is, I would consider, more D&D 5e trying to catch up.
Well, homebrew has been around since the beginning, though.
Well, homebrew is all well
not
and
5e, but D&D.
Okay.
Homebrew is all well and good, but the way it is in D&D, there are some things that are, unless you're willing to basically rewrite the whole book and start imbalancing things, there are some things that you kind of can't really do. Clerics can't use this. Fighters, no, okay, I can use everything. Druids can't wear metal,
Right.
Clerics can't use bows.
Rangers can't be good.
Yeah. And so there are definite lines that, unless you're willing to rework the basic, really fundamental stuff, there are some lines that you can't really cross, unfortunately. You can if you choose to homebrew it, but with Call of Cthulhu, it's, okay,
anyone can do whatever.
All you do is you just put points in a skill and some money into it, and then boom.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair.
That's about the only reason why I think Call of Cthulhu is a tad bit more roleplay friendly. I mean, homebrew friendly.
Yeah.
The only other thing that is, well, I mean, I guess if you can think it, you can do it. Because I was going to say, the only other thing that Call of Cthulhu has going against it would be its 1920 setting, where you can't really be like a computer hacker or something. But then you just play present day Call of Cthulhu. I was going to say,
then you can just do whatever time period. So
exactly.
I mean, you can't be a computer hacker in D&D either.
Yeah,
it's true.
Well, you could be the equivalent of, like, a magical technician.
Oh my god! Dude! I want to play an artificer who can, like, remotely control golems.
Oh, hell yeah, dude. Like,
dude!
Stuff like that, like, you can do, cool things like that, and it's...
It's... Watchdogs? It's Watchwargs!
The what he's gonna go into right now is the focus on combat, which is I think why, I mean, obviously it is the reason why the classes and stuff exist in D&D, right? The whole system really itself is mostly based on combat, which we'll get into. But I think the fact that they have things that are so restrictive is just so that everyone has a role that they can do and be important, right? Yes. And then in CoC, everyone's important regardless of what their role is, because you kind of need people in general.
I mean, you can be the pilot, you can be the driver, you can be the face, etc.
Yeah, I'm not saying you can't
be the police officer.
Absolutely, right? Like you can do what you can be specialized, but
you can be the party sugar daddy. Oh, you need that gun? Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. You can be a specialized thing in Call of Cthulhu, absolutely, but it itself is not your inherent worth, right?
Yes.
You as the person are still worthwhile regardless.
Whoa. Are you telling me that D&D without its classes is racist? Telling people that they're not worth anything unless they choose this profession?
Let's stop spreading political messages like human beings have inherent worth.
Oh no.
Wow.
I'm being very no.
Well,
let's
anyway.
Now we need to address that a little bit.
I understand what you mean.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. I understand that you understand, but for anybody that doesn't understand, I'm not saying that you don't have worth in D&D if you don't have a class. That's ridiculous.
NPC followers rise up.
Exactly, right? Like,
there's way more of them.
I mean,
to
be entirely fair, there is literally a class system for people in D&D because peasants exist, kings exist. Like, it is a feudal system, or whatever government kind of structure, and that's completely different. Like, that's a whole different topic.
Well, no, I thought you meant the class system as in, like, Acolyte and stuff like that.
Yep, there can also
Magic
be that.
Initiate.
Yep.
Less societal class worth and more, valuability in, combat worth.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So like the different levels of your class, absolutely, they have their own rankings, I suppose you could say. Because of, well, they used to. Nowadays, it doesn't matter, right? But they had titles and stuff that were associated with levels, which were interesting. But it's one of those things where it still doesn't matter. Like, you're still in D&D. You're in a story of you are in a party of exceptional people, right?
Yes.
You are absolutely exceptional. Fucking peasants could not even dream of doing what you could do.
But
right?
a crab might.
But a crab might, yes.
If you're a wizard, a crab might.
A crab might stop you.
Or a cat.
Or a cat, exactly.
Or a ferret. Or wait, was a ferret or a weasel? I think it was a weasel.
Yes?
Yeah, they're both muselids.
Yeah. But anyway, let's continue.
Strong focus in combat. This is to be expected, since most of the rules in the player handbook is related to combat. Meanwhile, CoC focuses on investigation and role-playing. Finding the right clues and persuading the right people to help can save your character from mortal danger. This is also where the games greatly diverge. To use game design term, the compulsion loop
I
of
always
D&D
love that
is
artwork.
to explore, kill monsters, get rewarded by experience points and loot, then rinse and repeat. There can be social and exploration encounters in between, but since the activity that nets the players the most reward is combat, then naturally the players would drift towards certain behaviors. To be honest, D&D isn't really that bad if all.
I don't quite know about that.
Well, he'll get into another point here in a second. But this is from the dinosaur races in Tomb of Horrors. Yes, Tomb of Annihilation. Thank you.
Dude.
Yeah, they're super cool.
That's fucking sweet.
You do is combat. If that's all you do, then you would just go back to wargaming, which D&D sprung out of. In my opinion, part of the reason for D&D's resurgence is because it offers something more than the tight and hyper-focused game loop that video games offer. In fact, the writers at Wizards of the Coast seem to be aware of this. That's why they have been incorporating milestone leveling into their hardcovers. Even more recently, they are using advancement checkpoints in Adventurers League, which rewards players for completing objectives rather than killing monsters. Sure, a great dungeon master should also be a great game designer. They can homebrew rules to create desired experience for their players, but it still takes a bit of work. Call of Cthulhu.
Okay, so yeah. So that was the cool thing that I thought the Wizards did for a little while there. That's neat, and if they keep implementing that kind of stuff, cool.
Yeah.
Let's just not have the whole changing everything from our last episode. Anyway.
But racism.
Oh, forgot.
So, as I was gonna mention,
yes, go on.
I don't really think that saying D&D is objectively combat focused is necessarily accurate. I myself run a campaign that is more investigative in nature. Plus there's the whole like we live in a society sort of thing. There's probably not going to be combat waiting around every corner of the city because
holy fuck, there's your problem.
There
has to be combat everywhere.
That it would be unsustainable for a civilization to have that.
But you're the DM. Just give them combat. Give them combat. That's why my campaign's been so good.
Hey, dude,
oh,
I threw the cannon encounter at them last session, and they finished it in 6 rounds of combat.
Nice.
Because
that's
the warlock stacked movement speed, a shit ton of movement speed buffs that were it made sense for them to be able to stack, and got a movement speed of 270.
Yep.
And then started double dashing.
Yep.
And made it up to the top of the hill in 3 rounds, and then used lightning bolt on the gunpowder barrels and detonated all the cannons.
Nice.
And I'm like, cool. I spent a day and a half prepping that encounter. Good thing that it was done in an hour.
Yeah, and my
great.
encounter with my encounter with a certain shadow demon That went exactly as expected.
Yes. And an encounter with some cultists in the woods summoning Yogg-Sothoth.
That wasn't Yogg-Sothoth. Yeah, fucking. I thought 12 would be like, oh man, there's 12 of them. We can't take that many. I guess next time it needs to be like fucking 40 of them.
Yeah, well, intimidation, baby.
With a shotgun.
Guns.
After blowing one's head
boy.
off. And then you still failed the roll. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Nothing like a double barrel to make a convincing argument.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So on the point of D&D not being about objectively combat, I would disagree, because it itself is so heavily skewed for combat.
Oh yeah, classes are defined by what they can do in combat. Absolutely.
Yes, that's why I would say it is absolutely made for combat. I'm not saying you can't do other things, right? We all have done other things. We have a whole game going on that you should be watching, called Devils and Dice, where we basically don't do combat most sessions, right? Like we just fuck around, we do role play, we investigate, we steal, we do whatever.
And
right?
hell, sometimes even the combat encounters don't even involve actual combat.
Right.
Like when they with the first encounter with Champion, there was basically no actual
That's
traditional combat. It was just a chase around some buildings and the cat scratching up Mez because he was trapped. Not because he was trying to attack him.
Exactly. So I would definitely still say that it is objectively made for combat, but it also has elements there that you can use to not do combat, right? But it's definitely the focus is the combat setting.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
On the other hand, as a more complex loop, the general philosophy of the game is that the more the player risks their own safety by investigating dark corners or fighting eldritch abominations and survive, they will be better rewarded. So this is the biggest difference. You get to choose fight or flight. Running away here is always a viable solution. So does fire usually. But the burden of guilt will weigh down on your characters and gnaws into their sanity if they do nothing. They will eventually lose their mind if they keep running away. Another good thing about Call of Cthulhu is that it is a relatively...
Okay, wait, so before we go too far from that point, yes, Call of Cthulhu has this as its loop of you investigate, sometimes you fucking find a thing and you go, ah! And then you run away, or, haha, I have a gun, and you shoot it, right? Though I would honestly put the arrow also going to reward for flight.
Yeah.
And I would also say that fucking doing D&D, you can also do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not the core loop, absolutely. I wouldn't say it is the core loop, but again, that varies from campaign to campaign and DM to DM, I would say as well. In the sense of, yes, it is skewed towards combat, and that will get you the most often get you the reward, but nobody runs in D&D when, you know, it's a thing that people just don't think about when you totally could, right? And it could very well go better off for you running away, preparing, coming back. There's also, I would say, the investigative thing is definitely a part of D&D as well, because no matter what, if you're going to go to a dungeon, you've probably heard about that through your investigations of whatever, right? A rumor, or just somebody who's talking about it, like, openly going, hey, I'll pay people to go in a dungeon, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then, like, even when you're, classic scenario, got any rumors, and then they tell you, it's like, oh, well, there's a cave outside. What's in that cave? Even just a simple question like that is technically investigating what you're about to go and do.
Yeah.
You're arming yourself with, even though it's a tiny little thing, you're arming yourself with knowledge.
Exactly.
Furthermore, in the Call of Cthulhu one, you don't always need to think of running as going backwards. Running can go forward, maybe you investigate and you find whatever's going on and you realize that this is not something you can deal with.
Mm-hmm.
You can run away and then go back to your employer and be like, and you tell your employer or whatever, you do something, you let someone know or whatever, and then you're rewarded. Like, we'll take care of it. You stay out of it for now. We know your knowledge will help.
Yep. Yeah.
And then
that's what a good fighters guild will do.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing that in Dungeons and Dragons, while running is it is totally doable.
Mm-hmm.
One, I think a lot of players in Dungeons and Dragons, because they know that the game is geared toward combat, and most times, in order to get the best rewards, some fighting is required.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot harder to make them run.
Yes. Yeah.
Because in Dungeons and Dragons, and you kind of have to have smart players to do it. Mm-hmm. If you put a dragon in front of a group of players, you might have those groups of players that are like, oh man, it's a dragon, we can take it, and then they get roasted.
Right.
You have to have that smart group of players that's like, oh, that's a dragon. Okay, we're leaving right now.
Yeah, there's definitely an aspect of if you as the DM throw something at the players, you expect them to act a certain way, or they expect that they can take whatever you're throwing at them.
Yes.
Right.
Like, and so that can create some dangerous situations. Whereas in Call of Cthulhu, it's almost completely reversed. Again, if you have smart players, because it's incredibly easy to make them run if they know that that's one of the things that there's an option. They see how weak they are. They see their sanity and be like, if that reaches 0, I'm dead. And if that reaches 0, I'm dead.
Well,
it came down to the point where in the Call of Cthulhu campaign that I ran in the past, it's dead. Mm-hmm. You guys got fully scared off by a big frog.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Though, so
the eyes.
You bring up
the tentacles.
You bring up the stats. Though I would argue that you don't even need to have that as the reason.
True.
That's the metagamey reason, right?
It's true.
In game, in character, you would get the reason of, I am a human being and I'm seeing a giant fucking frog monster with many eyes and tentacle things that do the and then you run away. Yeah. Whereas in D&D, it's one of those things where role-playing out a character that has very little experience with monsters doesn't seem to be the consensus to do, right?
Yeah.
They go, I can fight because I am powerful, because D&D makes you feel powerful.
Yes.
And
you are powerful, because the books even tell you that any adventurer is an exceptional person.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things where it's like, how do you present that in such a way where they can go, I am powerful, but not that powerful?
Yeah, it's difficult.
Right.
Yeah, both games have totally different scaling levels.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And just power scaling in general in D&D is different than Call of Cthulhu. As such, of course, players are going to act differently in response to threats. If I see a brown bear tomorrow while I'm on a walk, I'm going to play dead, and I'm not going to fight it. I ain't suplexing it, but my level 5 barbarian is going to go, you know what? Finally, something that can probably take a couple hits.
Right, exactly.
Poor brown bear.
So, yeah, dude. Leave the brown bear alone. Or be like Zangief and just wrestle brown bears in the tundra and, muscle yourself up that way, dude.
Yeah.
Get
and
pumped.
Then be like Hagar and fucking wrestle bull sharks.
Yep.
Anyway.
But that's the thing. I would say that D&D, it's one of those things where I both am totally saying that D&D has that core loop of fight, kill, get rewards. I am saying that, but I'm also saying there's more than that, right? Like, it's not that it itself is giving you that dynamic core loop, like this says, but it is there, right? It's not, I guess it's not as prevalent. But again, I wouldn't say that, this doesn't seem dynamic. It just seems like you have a few options.
I think it's more how you progress as a character in Dungeons and Dragons versus Call of Cthulhu. Because in Call of Cthulhu, excuse me, in Dungeons and Dragons, you start out, you kill stuff, and you get XP. Again, rules as written.
Right.
Or you perform some task and you get XP, and then you level up. In Call of Cthulhu, there's no experience. I think it's a little bit strange that he hasn't gone into that. There's no experience, and so the loop, by removing experience out of the equation, while the loop can remain the same, the intentions and desires in the loop change. Because it's not about killing something, it's about successfully doing things.
Right.
Because you can shoot a deep one, and then he socks you in the fucking jaw, and I'm like, oh, I can't do this, and run away. And yet you still, at least in terms of XP, quote unquote, you still came out on top because you made that shot, and you have the opportunity to then increase your gun skill.
Right, true.
So
the other thing that I would say is he's even brought up the point of D&D is changing that core loop.
To milestones.
To the milestone system, which itself then makes it more dynamic, right? Because it's then not about you kill the monster, you get experience. It's about you reach a certain quote-unquote milestone.
You do stuff.
Yeah, you do stuff, and then you get to a point, and then you start leveling up, right? So it's definitely, I think there's a lot more here to both sides. But again, I don't know. It's strange. It's a big strange thing, and I just have a little issue with it, but it's not like, anything damning.
It's not horrible.
No,
it's not bad.
And no, absolutely. And I don't want that to be the takeaway here. I just think there's a little tweaking there that needs to be done, but I can't really explain it well, I guess.
Well, I feel we've done a good job projecting the point though to the listeners.
I hope so.
True.
Call of Cthulhu is not D&D. Fighting things in Call of Cthulhu is big bad. Fighting things in D&D pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we were around there-ish.
Sanity if they do nothing. They will eventually lose their mind if they keep running away. Another good thing about Call of Cthulhu is that it is a relatively easy game to learn as players. Yes, even easier than 5th edition D&D. It is a great system to introduce new players to. Simultaneously, it also has a low skill ceiling, so players would have to rely on their noggins to achieve spectacular effects, instead of relying on high-leveled class features or spells. This is really a matter of preference. Some players may prefer more depth and want to have more class features. But the flip side is, as they say, if you are given hammers, every problem looks like nails. When it comes to game mastering, however, Call of Cthulhu is a...
Okay, wait. So, before we go into game mastering, I don't agree with the less or more depth thing.
Really?
I don't.
How so?
I don't think so. I think they can both be equally as deep. Honestly.
Mechanically? Because I would like to remind you that multi-classing exists.
Okay.
And feats.
Yeah, that's fair. You know what?
And
I retract what I said. I was thinking of it as more of a story kind of.
It's purely mechanical. Is what he's
back backstory and character development can
Right,
be
right,
equally deep in both. It's just up to the
Yeah,
player.
if we're talking about mechanics themselves, then yeah. Oh fuck yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Oh yeah.
I don't know about less options, but I would say definitely more depth. Because there are so.
Well, I think they're talking about with less options the fact that at least, say, in level 1, you are limited to your class.
Okay, if that's the comparison, then I'll agree. But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of. Eh.
Yeah, it's a little too broad.
Also, could really use a comma there, but hey.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Less comma
Harder
options,
game
more
to
depth.
game master.
No. Less comma option.
Options, more depth.
Because in D&D, if you know how to play the game as a player,
This I agree
all
with.
you need to do is to pick up an adventure module and run the game like a recipe. A rookie DM just have to run their players sequentially through the dungeon rules. They may choose different paths until they reach the boss at the end of the dungeon, but it doesn't really make that big of a difference. Call of Cthulhu, on the other hand, is much more open-ended. The players are usually free to explore
It's
the
awesome.
locations they are in, or multiple locations. There is a chronological timeline of events that will take place during the scenario, or even before. But what complicates things is that if certain events, like a fire, is prevented from happening, it would cause a butterfly effect, and the game master, or
Sure
keeper,
does.
as they are called in Call of Cthulhu, would have
As
to come up with their
someone who runs his game this way, where you have a big old city and boy oh boy, the world state's going to change based on the choices you make. Ooh boy.
It's the preferred way that I like to do things because
Yeah.
it's so much harder to do, but man, is it great.
But it's when it comes together.
Oh
woo,
yeah. Oh yeah.
it's great. But goddamn, it's hard.
Yep.
own consequences. The NPCs don't just stay in certain locations too. They are meant to act and behave like real people, according to their written personality, of course. So the keeper basically has to become the AI that controls their actions in possibly unforeseen situations. Some very experienced dungeon masters can easily do this, but it is usually quite hard for rookie game masters to do.
It's very intensive.
Well, there you go. These are
It
the
does
list
get
of
it does
strengths
get easier, but it's always intensive.
Yeah. Absolutely.
the list of strengths and weaknesses for each games. Every one of you have your own preferences, so it is up to you to decide which one is the best game for you. So comment below and tell us which one you think is the better game. Personally, the best campaign experience I've ever had the pleasure of game mastering was a Call of Cthulhu campaign, Mask of Nyarlathotep. But over the years, Dungeons & Dragons had consistently provided me with many great campaigns. I love both of these games. Actually, I think every D&D players and dungeon masters should play Call of Cthulhu to broaden their horizon and expand their skill set by borrowing elements from other games, and vice versa.
Especially that.
Maybe even
Especially like just if you just broaden your horizons and play literally anything, any other tabletop role playing game, which honestly I want to do more, right? Like because
I would be willing to play Fate of Cthulhu.
I would be willing to at least play it just to see.
I would not be willing to buy it.
No,
Willing to play it.
Yeah, exactly.
If you catch my drift.
I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, but no, legitimately, any other role playing game out there, like once you have experience in one, you can just start going like, ooh, lift this from that and put it into this one. Ooh, right? Like,
see,
you
now,
here's
here's my question, Aiden. What about RPG Pundits RPG? I forget what it's called.
He has two, I thought.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
he's got two.
There's multiple. It's not Warhammer. It's like
no.
It was the War of the Roses, I think, or something, based on that. Yeah, you have fun finding that.
Yeah, that's fun.
Now, so I'll say personally, I'd be willing to give it a shot.
Woo.
Right, like
a one shot. Yeah,
a one shot, exactly. A shot. I'd be willing to give it, but It'll be hard, right? It
Oh
could be one of
boy,
those
he
things.
has a module called Hipster Elves.
Oh my.
For D&D.
RPG Pundit presents number 4, Hipster Elves. This
Uh-huh.
weekly periodical from the mind of RPG Pundit features a different theme or topic in each issue.
Okay.
This supplement details the most common surviving species of elves on the surface world. Hipster elves.
So what? Vegans?
I don't know,
Is
man.
is that what he's getting at?
I am not absorbing all of
Oh,
those
God.
words into my brain. Feel free to read the description yourself.
Nah.
No, I'm good. Thanks, so.
You cannot make me look at it with my eyes.
You know what?
Okay, I'll just make you look at it with your soul.
I'll subject myself here. Hold on.
Yeah, same.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Spanish
Searches
version.
related to RPG Pundit RPG. One of them is RPG Pundit Racist.
Oof.
What?
Ooh.
No.
Ooh.
I don't really care.
He went into there was a lot of things that were in reference to him that I saw that I was like, okay, 50 new 0-level professions for hipster elf characters. Amazing, dude. A hilarious table of them.
You know what? I will give him this. He has a post on his blogspot.com.
Oh, Blogspot. Wow.
That says video. D&D SJWs call you racist if you use other cultures in your setting and racist if you don't. That I find, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's fine.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, anyway, let's finish this out.
If you use it, it's appropriation. If you don't, it's whitewashing.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
Try other games like Vampire the Masquerade or even some variation of the Fate games. It is not just about learning a new system.
Yeah, Fate's real
You should
good.
try other games so that you could experience different gamer culture. Different gaming groups have their own gaming traditions and habits. And gaming groups centered around a different system usually have very unique ways of playing their games. If you want to level up your gaming skills as a game master or player, this is one of the quickest way to go about it. Think of it as cross-training. Coincidentally, this segues nicely into my announcement. Some of you who saw the graphics.
Okay, yeah, so he goes into talking about how he has a series on 7th edition of Call of Cthulhu that he goes through. Which is cool, and you should go check it out if you want to learn more about the most current edition. But yeah, this is good video. I like it.
Yeah.
Don't Stop Thinking is the channel, which I will subscribe to. This is not the TableTalk account. Oh well. I'll subscribe to it with that later. Anyway, but yeah, no, super interesting to look at the comparison, I think. And for those of you out there who only have experience with D&D, very much recommend you look into Call of Cthulhu. It's not that difficult to get started.
It actually is like super easy.
Yeah, like legitimately
Barely an inconvenience.
Absolutely. All you need to do is look at a character sheet and go, "Oh, that's how this works. Cool, let's do it." and then you go, "Hey, everyone,
I'm gonna need a new character now."
Yeah. Exactly, right? Like but yeah, good thing. Shit, that was only an hour. Fuck.
Yep.
Okay.
We got that one. We got through that one pretty fast.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you find good videos and you just kind of like go through them and you go minimal little things of like, oh yeah, that reminds me of a thing, or
That doesn't remind me of a thing.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's definitely a nice little break from what we usually deal with. Okay.
Ironic that a game set in a very racist time period is significantly less racist, apparently, than D&D.
Than the current anything.
Time period, yeah.
Yep. It's 100 years full circle.
It's
in the year.
There was actually a thing I saw a long while back, but it's never been more relevant, and it was people that are saying that we need to bring back the 1960s need to stop. We still have milkshakes and racism.
Yeah.
And the milkshakes have only gotten better.
Yeah, exactly.
I think they've gotten worse.
Really?
Well, here's the
Dude,
thing.
malt,
You got to go for
malt
one.
makes a milkshake like S tier, and you
true.
don't find it in milkshakes.
It's true.
And
It's true.
it's so sad.
Huh.
One of the places that you should definitely go, I don't know if you even have it. The only place I've ever seen one is like in Atlanta, a place called Johnny Rockets, and
I've heard of it.
It's a restaurant that is set up like a 1950s diner.
Neat.
You know, like lots of chrome, bright red, jukeboxes on the table. Fucking, it's great.
Okay.
And they use like the creamiest milk for their milkshakes. And they even do it in like those tall ass metal cups.
Oh,
Tumblers.
cool.
Tumblers, yes. And they give you the tumbler afterwards, so you get all of it.
Wow.
Dude.
That's cool. That's super cool.
Delicious.
There are a few restaurants at which I've ordered milkshakes. Where they gave me the tumbler, and I was like, "You just got my allegiance."
Yeah, right.
Nice. I have not done this, but I would like to at some point.
That's how you make a cult in Call of Cthulhu. Hey, you want a milkshake?
Tumbler, yeah, milkshakes.
Just sign here, and there you go.
Especially too when it's a really hot day out, and you can see like the where the frost ends on the tumbler, and you're like, "That's how full my milkshake is."
Yep.
All right. Well. Let us move on to the second video. We might have time for a third even. But this is this is another.
That's a good looking Cthulhu.
Hell yeah, dude. This is from Sandy of Cthulhu.
Peterson?
Just Sandy.
No.
I don't think it's Sandy Peterson though. But he has a channel
with only 2K subscribers. I highly doubt it's Sandy Peters.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true.
But he's got 3 rules to make your RPG scary, which is interesting. I thought I hope he uses some Call of Cthulhu things in reference. Didn't watch this, so let's see.
Hi, I'm Sandy Peterson, and we're going to talk about...
Wait. Wait.
Wait, what?
No, wait, is that actually? Well, hold on. Hang on.
I'm just gonna go ahead and calmly accept my 1 point for the podcast.
How is that worth a point? You didn't do anything.
It's
because
him.
I fucking called it.
It's him.
I remember him looking a bit.
He was a bit chunkier.
Chunkier.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm looking right now. That's Sandy Peterson.
Hi, Sandy.
Oh my God! I found Sandy Peterson's channel.
Hold on. I need to subscribe to him right now.
I already subscribed to him. I'm a good person.
Oh my God!
Oh my God!
Amazing.
That's amazing. I had no idea he had a fucking YouTube channel.
Look at all those minis. Those are great.
Look at the top comment on YouTube. I had no idea you had your own YouTube channel.
Dude, how do
the fifth comment? Why does this not have more views? Do people not know this is the guy who literally wrote the book on scary RPGs?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Okay. Hit that play button.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
About 3 rules to help you make your role-playing adventure scarier. These are rules that I myself use. Now, Lovecraft's favorite ghost story writer was Montague Rhodes James.
Okay.
His stories are available on Amazon and elsewhere. I highly recommend them. His ghosts are terrific. They're skinny, they're bony, they're scary. They are classic ghost stories. But the important thing here is that M.R. James didn't just write ghost stories. He actually wrote down 3 rules for making a ghost story more important. And for us, it's useful that these 3 rules can easily be applied to you as a game master in a role-playing game. You can use his rules to make your stuff scarier. So, the first rule, the horror must be malign. Now,
That makes sense.
Usually in a Lovecraftian-based tale, this isn't much of a problem because his critters are pretty malevolent. And what M.R. James was really worried about was having a ghost that just wanted to tell you where his corpse was or where the lost treasure was or something dumb like that. Like, it's not actually trying to hurt anyone. Lovecraft's monsters don't usually want to do that.
Yeah.
They want to go after you.
Not that there is anything wrong with having a Casper the Friendly Ghost scenario.
No, of course, yeah.
But no, if there is going to be a horror situation from a ghost hunting down the party, it is very tonally inconsistent. If once they encounter the ghost, it's like, oh, I can't find my ring.
Yeah, definitely. Like you would want the stakes to be there, right? Like you want to be able to build that tension and be like, oh, this thing actually wants to kill me.
The thing that immediately jumps to my mind, I don't know if it even really applies all that well to this. I think it does. Is either of you played the original Vampire the Masquerade?
No.
Like, not the tabletop, the video game, I'm sorry.
I've seen gameplay.
So,
okay.
Wait, not Bloodlines?
Yes, it is Bloodlines. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines.
Then,
I'm sorry. I forgot the title.
That's not the original Vampire the Masquerade game, but I know what you're talking about.
Okay. There is a part relatively early in the game where you go into a mansion that's, like, haunted by a ghost. That's what I'm thinking of when I think of this.
That whole section fucking scares me even now, right? Like,
because
even though I know it,
really well done.
It is quite well done. It's unfortunately there's a few like jump scary kind of things where it's like, but it helps. So this is the thing, and I will, since we're talking about horror, jump scares, at least nowadays, the way they're used are so overdone to the point of it is annoying, right?
Yes.
But jump scares are effective. Jump scares can be used effectively and are not always bad, right?
They are a tool in the arsenal of creating dread and horror.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so
horror as a whole should be is defined as the building of dread. So it's supposed to be the thing where you're creeping around in the basement of a long forgotten factory, and there's noises here and there, and people have been going missing, and every single alarm bell is going off in your system saying, "Get out of here."
Yeah.
That's horror. A scary clown jumping from around a corner wielding a pipe is not horror.
It's just being scared.
Right.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. It can be a product of it, but it itself, it needs a little more.
Ideally, good horror will raise tension and then release tension.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that you don't feel like you're having a heart attack for an hour and a half.
But what if I like being incredibly tense the entire time?
then Bud, there's movies for you, but
I know.
But they're all jump scares.
Ideally, jump scares can be used a couple times in order to reset tension and release it, and then you get that adrenaline rush, and then as you run away, you get more of the parasympathetic nervous system taking back over, and it's a whole biochemical response.
Yep. What were you gonna say, Boo? Sorry.
The way I always thought of jump scares, maybe I'm completely off base, but I feel like one, I think everybody kind of agrees they need to be used way more sparingly.
Yes.
But I feel like if you are building a horror story, horror scenario, it is a good idea to start off by building dread, obviously, because you want to make people feel uncomfortable. The human imagination is a very powerful thing. You make them feel very uncomfortable. You start having subtle things, and then if you choose to have a jump scare, the way that I would want to do it, and again, I don't know if I'm off base by doing it this way, I would want to have a jump scare that just transitions into, like, a lot of times when you see it in movies, it's jump scare and then it's gone.
Right.
And
Jump scare run into the next building. Okay, it's gone, and then they start using the what's it called? The water drum. There's a specific instrument that they
Waterphone?
use. Waterphone, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So the way I would always want to do it is if you get jump scared, I'm going to jump scare you, but the thing that's there that jump scared you isn't gonna just vanish and do it again.
Yeah.
This is its
Yes.
moment when it's going to attack you.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
it's clearly chosen that moment to jump
To
out.
strike.
Yes.
That's the
So-
thing. You can see it in a lot of movies in the sense of like where I'll use Halloween. Halloween is a good example.
Yes.
Where every time it doesn't use the classic like noise stinger jump
Yeah.
No, he's there and he's always there. It's just that he just kind of comes into the scene. There's no fanfare or anything. He's just there, and then he goes in and does what he does, and then leaves. Right?
A perfect example of this is Alien Isolation, a game
Okay.
I have yet to finish.
Oh.
It is a really, really good horror game, and
Yeah.
I love me some horror games. Wherein the alien, it roams around and it is drawn to you if you make noise, if you sprint, if you do stuff like that. You can hide from it, but if it gets your attention, if you get its attention, yes, it's gonna kill you.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are jump scares in the game,
Yes.
just due to the gameplay loop of, okay, I'm sneaking around a console. Oh shit, it's there. Okay, I'm leaving.
Well, see,
okay, find me a vent.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not really that's more of just coming upon it, and it's not really more like the jump scare is less in your face, and it's more just atmospheric, right?
Yes.
Or environmental, really, because they are an AI or more simulating a living thing that is just prowling around looking for prey. And
it's the difference.
Come upon
it's the difference between walking around and seeing a big fucking cat in your room, as opposed to being in a minecart and it bringing you to the cat.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so it feels way more natural and more
organic,
forgivable.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The horror that I prefer to use is a gentle lulling, wherein the party's walking along and I'm like, all right, they're getting stalked now. And they'll be going along and I'll mention, like, I'll describe the scene and everything's normal. Then the next time I describe the scene, there'll be just something a little bit off, but enough that most people probably won't notice it.
Yeah.
And then the next scene, there's whatever that off thing was, and then maybe something new. And then it's sort of like raising the temperature of the water that the frog is sitting in. And there does come a point where they like realize, oh, wait a second, hold on, things are fucky.
Right.
And then they start listing through the things that are fucky, and then they go, okay, guys, we have a problem.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's definitely one of those things that I'm worse at in a role-playing game. Because it's a lot harder for me to think about it and like do stuff like that. But it would make sense to go like, oh, you start noticing there is a smell of just a different smell. You're not entirely sure what it is, and then the next place it's just like the smell is still there, and you start noticing that there's a little bit of displacement of the rocks every now and again. Seems to be a little bit of like a quake, maybe. I don't know. Right, you start putting little things, I guess.
There was one scene where, in my campaign, where they were dealing primarily with the Daedric Prince Vermina, and one of Vermina's spheres is not just nightmares, but also bad omens.
Ooh.
And I threw, I think, 13 different bad omens, like black butterflies, tapping in a house after midnight from something called the Death Watch beetle, spider webs on a windowsill, stuff like that. Various generic things that they didn't quite realize what was going on until one of them had a nightmare of a big black giant dog howling with its head hung low.
Ooh.
that they're like, okay, hold on, something's fucky. He's taken explicit joy in explaining all of these details to us. What in the hell is going on?
You were gonna say, Boo.
One of my things that I like to do, if either of you, it's a less popular one of his movies, but actually one of my favorite John Carpenter movie that I've talked about before is John Carpenter's The Fog.
Ooh, good choice.
That movie is excellent.
Okay.
Now, one of the things that strikes me about it is that there are many scenes where there's a ton of fog, obviously, and
Really,
where the fog is rolling in, and it's a wall of fog. And then, of course, that like incredible score picks up, and there's this.
Such a good score.
Yeah. There is this dread that comes along with the fog, and so it's because you know what's going to happen. Basically, it's not really a spoiler. There are
things in the fog.
There's zombie, basically zombie sailors, old zombie sailors, and they come in and they kill people. So it's an interesting dichotomy because you know what's in the fog.
Yeah.
You know what's in the fog. You know what it's going to do. The fear isn't so much that you don't know what it is. It's that you know what it is, but that it's an inexorable advance that you can't do anything about.
Right. And it also plays off Hitchcock's little thing of you see the family, they're at a dinner table, and you see, like, you as the viewer see the bomb under the table that's ticking down, but they don't know that it's there, and so that builds the tension, right?
Yes.
So you know what's in the fog, you know it's coming, and you just know that it's gonna get there, and the other characters don't know what's in the fog yet, I assume. And then once they go in the fog, then you know, and then it's the release of that tension a bit.
Another fantastic example, a sort of a sub point, specifically about the fog, is that a horror villain has rules that it should obey.
Yes.
For instance, Freddy, you fall asleep, you're gonna get attacked. Jason, if you have sex, do drugs, drink alcohol, and smoke cigarettes,
and they're near the
you have
lake.
to be a good Christian boy with good Christian or girl with good Christian values.
Even then, sometimes
you're gonna get slashed.
If you're around the lake, I would say more so.
Yeah.
Or if you're in New York,
or if you're in space.
Yeah, well, you know, I love me some Jason X. Don't get me wrong, that shit is campy as fuck and it's stupid.
I remember you walking me through all 13 of those movies, and me around movie number 4 being desperate for you to stop.
I had to share because I loved them. Oh man, they kept getting worse. It was great.
Oh yeah, no, you stopped talking at around like 4:30 a.m. and I was like, oh god. I asked about this an hour and a half ago.
Oh, it's good. It's really good. Anyway, sorry, Sandy. Let's tell me more.
About being malign.
Yes, please. It's actually, I want to know.
Do that. They want to go after you. But there's always a temptation for some game masters, I felt it myself, to have a monster who's like a good guy or helping the players or on their side. Resist that temptation. The monsters should be alien horrors that work well. This is one of the reasons I don't like it when people play monsters themselves. You let a guy be a werewolf or a vampire, and then it changes the nature of the horror to something quite different. Now, now let me just...
Now, there's one thing that you can do with that. There are a very select few mythos races that you can kind of skirt around that.
Oh, sure.
Where they are very, very intelligent. And the one that comes to mind is one of my favorite races, the Great Race of Yith. Because what they do is they're called the Great Race because they have conquered time. They are able to send their consciousness forward and backward in time into different bodies and take control of them, and thus they can live forever.
Yeah. And then they leave whoever they transferred into in whatever body they were previously in, and then they're trapped.
Yes.
It's so good.
So it's really good.
Oh, it scares the fuck out of me, actually.
Yeah,
if
right?
you hear buzzing, start shooting.
Now, here's the thing. The Great Race of Yith is, at least off the top of my head, one of the only races that you can do in Call of Cthulhu that might be willing to parlay.
Oh, sure.
Because they themselves, in the books, are described as being very intelligent and scholarly. They're seekers of knowledge. They have fought many great wars, but they are still scholarly. So you can have a Yithian potentially offer knowledge to the players. The thing that you need to do, though, if you choose to do that, you need to make it so that they are willing to work for them, or work with them, not for them. Make the Yithians, the Yithian or Yithians, willing to work with the players, but they need to have a reason. They need the deal. They are doing it for their own benefit.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you make it. Oh, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, the Yithians are interested in promoting and advancing the cause of the Yithians.
Yes.
Exactly.
If you have something that you can offer that is advantageous to them, and for some reason it is not advantageous of them to just straight up kill you for it. Especially if you have something like, say, secret knowledge, and it's like filed away somewhere and you don't know what it says, but you know who to talk to, who's buried it under some tree, then they'll probably be pretty intrigued by that.
Yes.
You may also have a scenario wherein you stumble across a Yithian operation, and you're like, "Hey guys, I'm cool. I know who you are. I don't care. I need to be over here doing my thing." They may kill you, they may not.
Right.
Yeah, that's the other thing, because even in the book, they're like, if you need to be extremely careful with them because they're just as liable to kill you.
Yes. And I was gonna say, the way that you can, I like that doesn't take away from their threat, right?
Oh,
because
yeah, no, they...
like I understand what Sandy's going into here, in the sense of if you have that guy,
Sandy, Alejo?
because he's my friend, obviously.
Okay.
But what he's going into is talking about if you have a werewolf on the team and they know it's a werewolf, that kind of detracts entirely from
the werewolf
his thing. Well, actually, I would say less of a werewolf, because a werewolf you get the monster is the werewolf side and not the person, right?
Yeah.
I would then say his example of the vampire is more accurate, because a vampire themselves, I mean, they themselves are the monster at all times.
Yes.
And
that
so
they must feed, as opposed to a werewolf who will do what he can to try to not.
Exactly. So
unless
if
he embraces it, but yeah.
Right. If you have the vampire on the team, then you go, oh, this vampire is just here and we're working together, and vampires are not so bad, right? But with your example of the Yithians, then it's just like, are we sure we want to like go with the Yithians? They could either kill us right after we give them what they want, or
exactly.
Like, there is the threat is still there. There's nothing like, unless you actually actively find a way to broker a deal where you live and they get what they want and you get what you want, and that would take a lot of convincing, I would assume, and careful planning, right?
Any deal where you walk away from the Yith alive, even for a few days, is a fantastic deal.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that still even doesn't like take away their threat, because they know that you exist, and they know that you know that they exist, right?
Yes. And they have enough people under their control that they can find you.
Exactly. So it's one of those things where for something like the Yith, then I can see that being a perfect way to do it and not take away from that tension, that threat, right? But with something like a vampire or something like that, then it's like, I agree. Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah.
say that in my upcoming adventure, Yig Snake Granddaddy, I do have a Yithian who allies himself to the players for a while.
Wait, come back.
Out for his own.
Did you say Yithian allying himself with the player?
Yeah, he just said Yithian and ally himself.
Yeah!
I swear to God, if he goes into what we just said, I will laugh.
Oh my God, we'll be so happy!
Sandy!
Purposes. It doesn't make him a good guy. So what I'm saying is if you're tempted to have a good elder thing or something, don't. Now, it's okay.
Yeah, don't.
For an enemy to pretend to be benign or even to believe in their own purpose, feeling they're justified. Well, it happens all the time. I mean, the Nazis and Stalin's murderers all thought they were doing the right thing, or at least they pretended to think they were doing the right thing. So you could have them believe in their cause and try to convert players to it, but fundamentally, they're the bad guys. For example, the fungi from Yuggoth seem genuinely convinced that carving out our brains and putting them as cans is something that we should want.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we want to have the freedom of having our brain in a can out of our body? Well, I mean, no sane human would want this, right? Which is why the brains in cans are crazy. Now, that's important to the plot. One guy is saying, hey, we can reward you by taking your brain and put it in the pot. And the players are like, ew. Now, you could have an adventure where having someone's brain put into a cylinder is necessary to solve the adventure, do something. That's okay, but the fundamental badness of this should always be key to it. The fact that you're in an unreal universe of dreams and you're in a can and you're subject to the whims of the fungi should be a horrifying thing, not seen as a reward. Okay.
I agree.
Yes. Although that is a fantastic idea of teaming up with or having a truce with someone who is traditionally an enemy and then being like, hey, we'll reward you with insert horrendous outcome here.
Yeah.
And then you're like, no. And then he's like, no, come on, it'll be fine. And they start walking towards you with a scalpel.
Right, exactly, yeah. It's a good thing to definitely use the perceived ally that is actually going for their own motive.
Okay, let's go on to our second rule.
Yeah.
Montague Rhodes James says, don't use jargon. Now, for him, writing ghost stories in the 1920s, jargon was like theosophy or terms like vibrations or auras or stuff like that. He didn't want you to use spiritualist New Age terms. But we have a very different problem with jargon in role-playing games, and that's that our games typically have rules. Rules aren't bad. They help you decide things such as, where is the elephant? Can I see that guy? Did I successfully climb the wall? I mean, if they're arbitrary, it becomes arbitrary instead of being a game. So we have the rules, but if you use the rules too jarringly, they can take the player out of the adventure. So, for example, don't let the rules drive it. They're a support mechanism. They help determine what happens. But for example, if you're having a ghoul attack a person, okay, the actual physicality of that in the game is probably, in Call of Cthulhu, is you roll dice, you check to see if it succeeds, then you inflict damage. But don't, for heaven's sakes, don't portray it in the game as saying, I rolled 24, the ghoul hits, he does 4 damage. Instead, roll the dice, check the damage, then say, the ghoul assaults you, it claws your shoulder, blood flows, take 4 damage. Yeah. The guy knows he takes 4 damage then, but the important thing, the first thing he hears is, the ghoul clawed his shoulder. Now, Call of Cthulhu doesn't necessarily have rules for what happens when your shoulder is clawed, but you can still use this later in the adventure. Okay, you can say, you might even use it just like peripherally. For example, later on, say the player fails a climb roll, and you say, oh, I guess your shoulder's still hurting you. That's why you failed. And he goes, oh yeah, that makes sense. And it kind of brings that shoulder wound to the action. Or you can do things like, you can't carry the backpack because your shoulder hurts. You can just throw in things, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this is definitely something that is overall good for, like,
role-playing as a whole.
Exactly. Like, it's the description to let them know what's happening in game and then going into the rule kind of setting. Like, I wouldn't expect you to call for a roll every single time we talk to somebody, right? Like, because that would be absolutely jarring, right? Because it's just like, you do it at certain points where it's like a tense moment, or this is an important moment for deciding how things are gonna go, I would say, right? Instead of just a willy-nilly thing, because everybody loves rolling dice, but there comes a point where it's like, I'm rolling dice too much, right?
Yeah.
I would say there's a good balance to have.
Yeah.
And then using a previous condition in order to explain why things are failing is definitely something that I fucking should work on, because I don't think about that sometimes.
I mean, that's something that we've already done in the Devil's campaign, where it's like, you were in the session where you guys found the cursed coin, and you were making the survival roll to get back to camp or go somewhere, and you got a 1. And I was like, or you got a low roll or something. I don't remember if it was a 1 or not. And you're like, oh, well, you're still thinking about what's going to happen with that coin, so you're not paying as much attention. You know?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's as simple as saying stuff like that, really.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's just one of those things where sometimes I don't think to do it because, it's definitely one of those anecdotal things that I don't think about. But
yeah, it's my recommendation, as weird as this is to have somewhat of a snarky attitude. That'll definitely help remind you. So when he said, actually, oh, I guess your shoulder's still hurting you, it reminded me of, I think, like the 3rd session I ever held of D&D, wherein the half-orc and the warlock were looking for the paladin. And as they're walking along, they find like 2 NPCs who are fighting, and the female NPC is throwing out clothes and stuff at the guy who's on the street, and he's like, "Oh, come on, like it doesn't have to, blah da 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 da."
Sure.
And one of the things that the woman threw out was a pot.
Oh.
And it went wide.
Oh.
And it hit the warlock in the back of the knee.
Ew.
And he took 1d4 damage from it and had his speed lowered by 5 for the rest of the day.
Yep.
And later on he missed an attack roll or something. Or he got hit, or it was something bad happened in combat, and I summed it up as like, your leg it's still messing with you, kind of twinging with you, and because of that, you're not able to like lunge quite in time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'll think about it, I guess, more so in like, I guess, combat situations, but for other things, sometimes I just forget. Right.
Yeah. Most of the time when it comes up is usually in combat anyway.
That is true. Anyway, here we go.
Another example, in Call of Cthulhu we have sanity checks. So instead of saying, you see a ghoul, make a sanity check, you want to use some simple verbiage. I'm not saying you have to write a book, right? But you say something like, the ghoul leers. Somewhere in your mind you realize it was once human. Make a sanity check. And the sanity check is not the emphasis, it's the result of realizing the ghoul was once human, or whatever it is. In other words, don't discard the rules.
Describe how
have
horrendous
them
it is.
serve you.
I did the same thing, where Dead Cthulhu campaign, and I'll go into how I described that frog. Basically what happened, people were finding alligators that had like holes in them, and they were like drained of blood. And they go out to a lake with a pair of crocodile hunters, and they find a crocodile, they shoot it, and then a huge, like, dog-sized frog leaps out of the water and, like, lands on the edge of the shore and does a quick hop on top of the back of the remaining crocodile, and it rears its head back up, and you see these horrible, pulsating, pinkish tubes burst out from beneath its chin, and you see that at the end of them, there are these horrible black snapping beaks, and they like go around to the sides of the alligator, and they rip out a hunk of flesh and jam themselves in there. And you see the tubes distend as it's carrying pulses of blood into the frog's throat. Make a sanity check.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
That's how you do it. You don't just say, oh, it's a big frog. Sanity check. You gotta describe, instead of thinking it as though this is a monster, make a sanity check. You should think of it as though this is a monster, but here's why you should make a sanity check.
Yes.
Here's what makes it monstrous.
Exactly.
Yes.
Here's
why you should be freaked the hell out.
And oh, go on.
I was gonna say the GM, DM, the person who's running Keeper, whatever, they have control over the feel of the scene, right? And the way that you describe things is going to affect how your players are going to view the scene.
Yes.
Even if they don't get scared or whatever, or anything like that. If you describe it as such, it at least gets them that picture in their head of, oh, my character now sees this, right? And then they can react to it however they need to. I think, honestly, most people do this, right? I don't think anyone but maybe newer DMs or GMs or anything are like, okay, roll this.
Yeah, people who are less comfortable describing scenes.
Exactly. Yeah. You were gonna say.
Oh, right. I was gonna say primarily because of Boo's description on what made the frog so horrible is why I chose to reflect in the notebook I was keeping of like, oh god, the horrible tentacle beard, oh god, don't look into its eyes, as well as a very horrendous sketch, highlighting the regular frog body versus it with its tentacles like all out and plunged into its victim and feeding off it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's again, DMs, GMs, all that have complete control over how your characters are going to be viewing a scene, and if you really do want to convey that kind of horror, then you gotta do the descriptive kind of stuff, and obviously, don't overdo it to the point of every single attack is like, and so he takes his clawed hand and brings it down across your body, and like, if you do that for everything, then it's gonna get a little old, and after a while people are gonna be like, I get it, all right. Right. There's a balance you gotta do.
Combat's gonna slog.
That
you want to do it for very important things, like for example, the first hit, first blood, potentially, and like crits, things like that.
Oh, absolutely.
Or like extreme successes or something like that.
First hits, good hits, last hits is what I use.
Yes.
And then every now and again in between, just to like spice it up every now and again to keep people from dozing.
I tried to say a little something for most attacks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just in order to like help keep the combat like more visual, I guess you could say. So then that way it's not just floating numbers. It's like, okay, like I understand that there's a bunch of X's on the paper, but like, here's what this person is doing and why they're doing it, stuff like that.
You would definitely go like the creature lunges forth and goes to strike, right? Like you don't have to do anything like super glitzy,
You don't have to describe the fur on its paw bristling through the air as it reaches out to hit you.
Right. You could do it all Shakespearean if you really want to, but you don't.
People are gonna get tired of it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing. And then
point.
the other big thing is that if you do that, then you can't really effectively do it again. Because
it loses some luster.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like if you have a ghoul and you describe every single attack and motion and thing that it does in those huge long-winded terms, it loses its importance and its flair. Because then you're doing it for everything and then it's not special anymore.
Yep.
Okay. Have them support what you're doing and don't overuse talking about the rules and playing the game. M.R. James's third rule, and in my opinion his greatest rule, is to set the horror in a place the player can reasonably imagine himself to be. I've touched on this in a previous video about why I don't play in the 1920s, because it's harder to make the player believe he's in the 1920s. It's really easy for a player watching this video right now to imagine himself in 2019 because he's there. Now, let me give you a pair of examples.
God, I could only wish.
So you're playing, I should have 2 videos, and one of them shows Star Trek. I love Star Trek. I'm sometimes worried for the heroes in Star Trek, but I'm never actually frightened or horrified in Star Trek. Yeah, why not? Fair. Well, the reason is that Star Trek is this clean plastic universe. Everything works. The universe, it's so different from my everyday life that I never feel I'm really there. I can't really imagine myself in Star Trek's universe. It's just a fun place to watch and to visit and to talk to the characters. It's not real enough to me to fear for the characters. Now, how about Alien? I love Alien too. Alien, even though it's also on a spaceship in the far future, feels realistic. The ship is an old tramp steamer. There's water condensation. The people act real. The people in Star Trek don't even have money. The people in Alien bitch about their pay.
Okay, all right. Well, so I get this. I think comes down to more personal preference.
Yeah,
Like,
I can definitely understand what he's going for.
Oh
here,
yeah.
but yeah, it really is his personal preference. I
Yeah.
personally prefer being in the 20s because of how I understand the psyche of people today and then.
Sure. Yeah. It definitely, like, I would say that it would be one of those things where if you put something in a more modern time, because we talked about this before, in a more modern time,
Yes.
we have much more of a desensitization
Mhm.
to things, right? So if I see that there is a dead body outside, I'll be like, that's a dead body. Oh,
I'm gonna go in and call the police.
yeah, I'm just gonna,
and then hope I don't get shot.
right,
but-
exactly. But then,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I would say
It's,
somebody...
it's a bad day, and if you have to talk to the police, it's a bad few days.
Exactly, right?
Yeah,
And then,
like
But overall, like, come next year, you'll be. It's a story to bring up at a party.
exactly. And then if somebody from a historical
1920s.
period of the 1920s, my brain couldn't think for a second there. But if somebody from then was to see a dead body, it would haunt them for a few I don't know, months maybe, right?
yeah,
Like,
that's a thing where you go to therapy for that.
yeah, exactly. Like, it's something that will fuck with you,
Yeah.
quite royally. But yeah, so yeah, Star Trek's pretty cool though.
You don't like the working
Debatable.
conditions. They get frozen with terror when the monsters approach them. So when they're menaced by the monsters, it hits home. It feels like it's a monster that I can grasp. Okay? Whereas when the Star Trek guys are menaced by a monster, I say, cool, a monster. Let's see how this deals with it. Is it going to get someone? But I'm not horrified, if you get what I mean. Okay?
How many red shirts is it
Even
gonna
when a
kill?
robot shows up in Alien, the robot, I'm not going to spoil it, but it's in a scene of terror and horror. Okay? It's scary. There's dripping fluids. It's nasty when the robot comes. You don't know what's
editing.
happening at
Yeah,
first.
that was weird.
Hey,
That was a little weird, I'll be honest.
Oh, after seeing hard cuts mid-sentence, all video,
Yeah.
suddenly at 8 minutes and 8 seconds in, seeing a zoom in, that was like, whoa.
And there's multiple zoom ins.
Yeah, no,
Now,
I get he's
This
you know,
stepwise zoom.
Yeah.
Like, Sandy, my man.
Here's one of the things though that gets me.
yeah.
I think you're okay to spoil Alien. It's like
Yeah,
what,
I was gonna say, like,
Yeah.
50 years. When did it come out?
80
Like
something.
It was like 83, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
I'm-
like 40 years old now. I think you're good.
Alien movie. Let's find out.
I would actually like to know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
79.
70.
Okay.
It was on the very cusp. Oh man.
The very
okay.
It is. It is 41 years old
Shit. Yeah.
and still one of my favorite movies.
Oh yeah.
it's a
Oh
good movie. Man,
yeah,
I hope
it's a
they
fucking
remake it.
Good.
Oh, don't worry. That's what Prometheus is for.
Yeah.
No, that
I
wasn't.
heard that did really well.
Wasn't remaking. It was trying to give a history
I know.
that nobody
Yeah.
wanted.
Yeah.
It was bad.
We had
bad.
we
bad,
had
bad
we had a lot of questions, but we did not want answers.
Yep.
Alien podcast coming soon.
Dude.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Prometheus and Star Wars The Last Jedi were the two movies I had to try to watch twice to finish. And I've still not finished TLJ.
You know,
I haven't even started.
the only movie that I can say that's done that to me was The Room. And no, not The Room, Birdemic.
Oh, okay.
Because that thing is long as fuck.
Yeah, it does feel like it takes an age.
It's like 2 hours long.
It's definitely something that you watch in a group of friends and you just
Yeah.
like hang out and you talk over, right? Like,
yeah.
it is not a
I
watch
watched it
this by
alone,
yourself.
which was not the good idea.
Yeah.
Alejo, what was the movie that we had that we watched? It was like aliens were attacking and they were hanging out in a warehouse or something.
Oh. Wait. All right. Oh fuck.
It was bad.
It was really bad.
I left and made ramen in the middle of it.
Yeah. Oh no, it was wasn't it in the forest and such like a lot?
Yeah. It was
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
forest,
yeah.
And then they encountered
Like lights.
lights.
Really
Yeah.
bad lights. Oh man, I wish okay, I gotta find this now. I know it was on Netflix. Hold on.
Was it on Netflix?
Yeah, it was on Netflix.
I thought we pirated it.
Nope. Nope. It was on Netflix. It was
Oh boy.
Alien. It wasn't Hanger, no.
No,
No, it's definitely close to that though. It was something like that. I don't. It might be removed from Netflix. Honestly, I don't know. But it was really bad.
I'm looking for alien movies, and it's one of the listings is top 30 alien invasion movies, and I'm like, it's not on that.
It's not on that. No, it's very bad. I wish I could remember.
God.
I wish I could remember. All right.
I thought it had like a 43 or something.
It had a
Rotten
number.
Tomatoes.
It definitely had a number. I do not remember though. It was like. Anyway, let's continue with some horror talk.
Fluids, it's nasty when the robot comes. You don't know what's happening at first. Interestingly, there's one part of the Nostromo that looks different. The computer room. Mother, they call it. Mm-hmm. Look at the computer room. It looks like it came out of Star Trek. It's clean. It's like claustrophobic. There's a little hall going down to it. It's all covered with nice little panels, you know? And interestingly, although this is a cool place, there's never any scary scenes in there. Because I think the director knew it wouldn't work. That's not where scary things happen. That's where the captain goes.
I was gonna say it's too lit, and not in the way the kids say it these days. No, but it is very well lit, and you never really want to put your monster in something where you can see all of it.
Yeah,
Unless it's Godzilla.
Well, he's not a monster, dude. He's the, hero
king of the
our time.
monsters.
He is a kaiju. He is a
the
big
king
monster.
of the monster. You're right, but still.
I know.
I wouldn't qualify him as a monster unless he's possessed by the souls of everyone who died in the bombings of Nagasaki and
then fucking King Ghidorah's got to come in and teach him who's fucking boss.
That wasn't what happened in that movie.
I know.
I should have. That movie was not that great. I did not like it.
It was alright. I like seeing big monsters punch each other.
I did
Rodan
see
and
that.
Mothra, that whole bit was stupid.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because, man, I love Rodan. Rodan's my favorite.
He's super cool.
Rodan's cool.
Because
when are we gonna get Angerus though?
in a big
We'll never
world of really big monsters that are all like really cool, he's just a freaking pterodactyl phoenix, man.
Hell yeah.
It's cool, but anyway, but legitimately, like that's the reason you'd never put them in something like that, in something like an actual like slasher horror-ish movie, right? Like you want to keep it concealed. Plus, I mean, the way that they spoilers for Alien, the way that they fucking in the final scene have the strobing light when it's crawling out of the wall of the oh dude,
I hate strobe lights. And I also love
Oh.
strobe lights.
It's such a good, like, just as it just comes out, you see just every now and again. And even in the light, the costume looks great because fucking they made good,
Props.
yes, props and
Practical effects.
Thank you. Yes, practical
Yeah.
effects. That's the term. But it definitely helps with the tension there because it's like, oh fuck, it's moving every now and again. I can see it. Oh,
Yeah.
right. And something like that room, it would be like, oh, I can see it the whole time.
Yeah.
That would be like more of a quick cut kind of situation, I would assume, where you get like small cuts of things that are going on. But that is never that great. Well, I wouldn't say never. I would say it's sometimes detrimental. But anyway.
To hide out from
Hangar
other
10.
people.
Hangar 10. Is that actually what it's called?
Yep. Here you
Oh,
go.
boy.
No. Yep. Okay. As soon as I see the forest.
As soon as it's that forest, man.
Oh no! Don't watch Hangar 10. Please don't watch Hangar 10.
Watch Hangar 10.
Oh,
Watch it. Oh, you will not be sad.
It's so bad.
Oh.
I noticed that you only specify sad.
Yes, you will.
Yeah, you know what?
No, because you will feel every other emotion under the rainbow.
Yeah,
I will not
exactly.
kick you. Oddly
It's very
specific.
When he wants to worry about things or find out stuff. There is horror in there, in a sense, in that he finds out things from Mother, the computer, that cause ominous problems, but it's not actually terrifying. It's like, uh-oh, something's up. And then he leads back out and goes. So,
an inconvenience.
When I say the player has to be able to imagine himself to be in the spot that you put him, I don't mean he has to be in the modern suburbs, okay? Alien works. A World War II scenario can work. A 1920s scenario can work. Just make it seem real to him. Don't emphasize the differences between his future place or his past place, or wherever he is. Don't emphasize the differences between that and now. Emphasize the similarities. Even if you're setting it like in the caveman age, humans are still fundamentally the same. You know, we got married. We had
Really?
kids,
We
had
did?
families.
I don't think they did.
We took
I know what you mean.
mates. Yes. No, I get what he's saying.
Yeah.
Mm.
I played Far Cry Primal. I know how cavemen do.
Mhm.
We're worried about our health.
There was actually, believe it or not,
Mhm.
back when Neanderthals sort of like died out to this Homo sapiens, bone records have actually shown that Neanderthals had a tendency, sort of a defect, and this is one of the reasons why they sort of fell out of the food chain. Their thumbs weren't quite as opposable as ours were, and they would pop out of joint like all the time.
Ooh. Oh.
So you'd have to pop them back into joint.
Oh, that's weird.
That's interesting.
No, it's Far Cry.
Oh. I hate that I didn't get it until right then.
Me too. God damn it.
Wow.
Yeah, but then as soon as you did, you at least got some health back. There, well, at least there, we can complete the joke now. Because I felt like that was about 83% of a joke.
Yeah, it was an idea that formed itself in my mind.
It was
and
good.
I had no outlet to actually form the joke.
Don't worry, it was good.
Yeah.
It's the classic thing with the Joker. If you have to explain the joke, there is no joke.
Yeah.
But don't worry, you were on the right track. It's just you ran out of gas like maybe a mile outside of town.
It's definitely also like I'm in the think about things setting, but not in the think about things setting, if you will.
So, speaking of which, this talk of aliens has reminded me of another movie.
Oh, okay.
Event Horizon.
Yes.
Oh.
I like that movie.
For all of that movie's flaws, they did a fantastic job with visual set design, promoting dread.
Yes, absolutely. I
never saw it.
Oh, you should. You really
Oh,
should. You would like
it has
I
a
think.
27% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, but it's not that bad. It does have a lot of
kind
flaws.
of falls to shambles.
Yeah, but it has a lot of flaws, but I think it's still a fun ride, honestly. I won't say it's a great movie, but I like it.
I enjoyed watching it.
Exactly.
It was not good, but I enjoyed it.
Exactly.
Families, we worried about our health. We worried about the winter. We worried about getting up. Emphasize those aspects. So, if you use these 3 rules, the monster has to be malign. Don't use jargon. And set it where the player can imagine himself to be. You will find your scenarios will be more scary and more effective. Thanks.
Oh.
Thanks, Sandy.
Okay. Thank you, Sandy. By the way, I just gotta say, thank you for summing up your video. No one does that.
Yeah. Rarely is that a...
It's
Just
true.
Oh, man, dude.
Sandy knows how to make content, and that's refreshing.
Because his entire career is making content.
Yeah, exactly.
I know, and it's good.
It's sad that you actually have to have like an entire career based around that just to,
I mean, some people do it better. Some people do it better. Some people do it worse.
Yeah.
Does Mike Pondsmith have a YouTube account? Now I'm curious.
Who?
Mike Pondsmith.
Another writer.
Oh,
guy.
Yeah, he works for Talsorian and he made Cyberpunk.
Oh. Okay. Let's see.
Cyberpunk 2077. Our Talsorian Games has a YouTube account.
Going mainstream with Mike Pondsmith.
And if you're looking for the current edition, it's Cyberpunk Red.
Right.
Just if he's under that.
Maybe.
Let's see. I mean, there are plenty of interviews with him.
Yes.
But I don't think he has a dedicated YouTube channel.
It's a shame.
Well, I guess we'll have to touch back with Sandy at some point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like,
that's crazy that he has his own.
Right,
2,000 subscribers.
I would adore having him on the podcast.
I would too,
dude.
Absolutely.
He's way out of our reach, but
golly, yeah. Absolutely.
Well, Boo could be the one to invite him. Boo's got the big dick 26.5K.
Hey, Sandy Peterson, you wanna get on a podcast with people that have like less subscribers than you do?
Hi.
No? Yeah, I didn't think so.
I don't know. I don't think Sandy Peterson cares about subcount.
No, I honestly, I don't know. We'll see. I'll shoot out a message or something. We'll see. But yeah, he's actually been active. He's got 4 days ago was his latest video. Wow.
Oh, really? Sweet.
Yeah,
excellent. I was gonna say I don't know what's going on in his life right now, and like if he would have time. But...
Yeah, no, it's just like, oh man, and the one before that is 2 weeks ago. Like, shit.
Maybe it's a brand new channel. Maybe that's why it has low sub count.
Let's see. It was made in 2018.
Okay.
So like 2 years. Okay.
It's not that bad.
No, he's got a Kickstarter going on with Dinosaur 1944.
That sounds cool. Oh, it's his game personally. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Kickstarter for
Peterson Games.
I would much rather play that than the RPG Pundit one shot.
I would too, yes.
Because that already sounds way better.
Dude, it has dinosaur minis.
Earth Expedition.
It has dinosaur minis, dude.
What?
Like, on the one hand, we have hipster elves. On the other hand, we have dino minis.
Dinosaur 1944. Yeah. What is this about? I need
Plays
to
and teaches how to play dino. What?
Drill instructor. Okay. Cooperative strategy game about army men versus prehistoric monsters in it. You and up to 3 players control brave soldiers in a World War II setting, struggling to save the entire world from the threat of a Mesozoic rebirth.
Hell yeah! That's awesome!
It's in part a battle game as you maneuver around the map and fight the enemy. It is in part tower defense as you place ambushes to help take out or slow down the incoming fiends. Each hero has unique strengths and weaknesses. Your victory depends on both in mastering your own hero and cooperating with your friends. Oh my god, that's great.
That's super cool! Oh my god, that's awesome!
It's got like tiles and shit that you do.
Yeah.
Oh man.
An actual board game. It's not
Yeah.
it's not an RPG.
No, but that's super cool. Oh my god.
Dude, look at
That's
this
some-
image
that's-
of a woman punching
Oh my
the
God.
hell out of a velociraptor.
Hell yeah!
That's so
oh my
good.
god,
Hell
that's
yeah.
beautiful.
Oh my god.
Yo, finally,
You want
the
some
question I've
equality, my
had.
man?
Finally, the question I've had since I was a 5-year-old. What happens when you take a Lee Enfield versus a T-Rex?
You probably
The-
still die.
The
Oh, no, you absolutely
yeah,
die.
you absolutely die. The pledges are real expensive though. Oh man.
Oh really?
Yeah, the lowest one is 79.
Woo!
Ooh.
Woo! Did this get funded? Oh yeah, it's over. It's over. It's funding. Good.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, no, dude. I like everything that gets funded. It gets funded nowadays. It seems
Yeah. Anyway,
for better or for worse.
yeah, it's true. It's definitely true.
Although in this case, it's definitely for the better.
What's this content from me and my team? By the way, this is a Sandy Peterson podcast now.
Yeah, right. Apparently,
Because like this is something people should know.
we didn't expect this.
No.
We didn't even know.
Peterson Games is the YouTube channel that he has here. He puts out content on there too, dude. 5 days
Yeah,
ago,
he's
fucking
been
Dinosaur
busy.
1944 questions and answers, dude.
Oh my god,
Star
so good.
Metropolis, The Gods War. Oh man, that sounds cool. Oh man. Okay. All right.
So did we have a third video?
Well, let's take intermission for now, because I need
Okay.
to pee. But
Yes.
yeah, we will be back with a third video potentially, or just
And then-
talking about stuff. I don't know. We'll see.
And then hopefully we can get to the 2 questions that me and Aiden posited.
Sure, we can do those actually when we come back. That sounds good.
Okay, cool.
Hey, this is Boo, and you're listening to TableTalk.
All right. Well, welcome back. Aiden has dropped out. He has things to do tomorrow, and he wants the good sleep. So,
Yep.
It's.
I
just-
apologize for my chewing, by the way, because I'm eating.
Oh yeah. So we're gonna continue on our Call of Cthulhu little stuff here, and we're going to go into the questions that Aiden and Boo posed.
Yes.
And honestly, Aiden can answer them next time in the very beginning. We'll do that.
Yeah.
That sounds fine. So,
Yeah.
the first one that he in fact posited was, what is it about things like cosmic horror and the existentialism present in works like Lovecraft or Poe that you find personally attractive? In short, why do you like Lovecraft? So, aside from, well, I mean, so having the monsters both be representations of the, like, what he's going for, right? Which is really cool to have like a physical representation. Like something like we were just talking about Yith. The fact of being just stranded in somewhere that you don't know, completely unable to like have any idea what to do, where you are, all that stuff. That fucking resonates with me really hard. He has a lot of these kinds of things that just resonate because it's like fear of the unknown is something that is just inherent with every human. We don't like that shit. And like having the idea of like it would make perfect sense to go like, hey, we're in the universe and we're very tiny, and we don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. It would make perfect sense, and it plays into the whole like, what is our purpose, all that kind of stuff. It definitely is like an interesting thing to think about, as well as just like it scares the fuck out of me.
Yeah.
Because when I do think about it, I don't want to think about it.
Yeah. One of the things that I like a lot about Call of Cthulhu is, I think, because a lot of the time in his works, it starts out with a normal person finding out about something.
Yes.
And then going on to find out that what you found out, this thing that's like really horrifying and weird and alien and like completely incomprehensible, and that alone is scary. Finding out that after a little bit of digging, this thing that's already really scary and weird, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You're wading into a pool, and then all of a sudden the pool is the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
So it's this feeling of overwhelming overwhelming smallness, I guess.
Yeah.
Because once you start digging, you find out that this stuff is way bigger than you. It's way bigger than humanity as a whole.
Exactly.
And there's actually two there's a video, there's a channel that's unrelated to tabletop role-playing games. It's called The Imaginary Axis, and it's a lot about comic books and superheroes and stuff.
Okay.
But he puts forth a very, very interesting point in his video about why you should be afraid of the Ghost Rider. It goes into the fact that the Ghost Rider embodies three different, very real types of fear. Fear of the natural, fear of the supernatural, and fear of the unknown.
Okay.
And he goes into a little bit of cosmic horror, and he describes how cosmic horror is realizing that humanity is tiny and insignificant in an uncaring, hostile universe. However, he presents in some aspects, a scarier fact.
Okay.
Where, and this can apply in Call of Cthulhu, and it can actually apply very well. It's just kind of hard to get this exact feeling across to the players.
Sure.
And the only one this really works with well is Nyarlathotep. Where cosmic horror is the knowledge that you are tiny and worthless, and the things outside your bubble don't give a shit about you.
Right.
But there's a concept that flips that on its head, where you're tiny and insignificant, but the things outside your bubble are very interested in you.
Yeah.
That's that can be worse.
Yeah.
And the thing is, a lot of the other ones, like Elder Things, Yithians, the Migo, they don't give a shit about you. But Nyarlathotep is an outer god who is basically Azathoth's emissary, and he is the most intelligent and personable one, so much so that there's a whole campaign called the Masks of Nyarlathotep, where it's all about him.
Right.
And he's got thousands of different forms that he's taken over the millennia as he's dealt with humans. He's very, very interested in humans.
Right.
So that can be worse.
Yeah.
Where these things that are so far above you, you're a protozoa to them, but they're very interested in poking around with you.
Yeah.
And figuring out, how does this thing tick?
I was gonna say, like, there's that kind of theming is present in a couple of different things, and like we're insignificant until we do something that brings their attention to us, right? Which is like one of those things where it's like, oh, I thought I was doing something good, but then you find out, oh, now I've drawn the attention, and now everything's worse because of it.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And it's definitely one of those things where it's just like, completely changes the story, right? Because it's just like, this was for the greater good, though, but oh no, I've messed with the balance somewhat, and now things are actually looking in.
And it's interesting because there's a in the 7th edition Keeper's Handbook, I forget which page it is. I believe it is at the very, very beginning of the chapter that deals with monsters. I want to say that's like chapter 10.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a paragraph called How to Roleplay Alien Deities.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple lines in there that are like, it shouldn't matter much if the players try to attack an alien god. And then it says, do you pay much attention to the ants on the street as you walk by?
Yeah.
It's like that.
That's the classic example of we are that to ants.
Yes.
Whereas we are the ants to them. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, super cool.
Mm.
It's very, very one of those things that I don't want to think about it.
And then that's another thing that I really, really love about Lovecraft is that it's really an overused term when it comes to him, but it's such an alien concept.
Sure. Where
on Earth, we're like the only thing really above us, honestly, is like nature and weather. You know?
Yes.
They are really the only things that can really dictate what we do.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, like an animal. If an animal goes like extinct, or if there's an animal that's slightly more aggressive than normal,
yeah,
it's not really in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really affect us at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really interesting to have this setting where we're no longer at we're at the bottom of the food chain.
Yeah, exactly.
And it changes your thinking so much. You have to really start thinking differently.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's so interesting to be put into that space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Especially if you read any of the works, or if you haven't read many of them, the one that's like considered one of his best is Mountains of Madness. The Mountains of Madness.
Yes.
That one is excellent.
Very good.
The story documents how a group of explorers find an alien body in the Antarctic. And then they cross over some mountains and they find an ancient city that's like millennia old.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They go down into the city, they explore ruins and carvings and shit. And they're like, oh my God, this has been around since like before we were even amoeba.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's interesting because the characters in the story take it as a very academic thing,
mm-hmm.
where they don't really get that kind of existential crisis from it. Some of them do, but the ones that you follow kind of don't.
Yes.
And so
one guy does, I think.
Yeah,
the one guy. He gets
Danforth.
Fucked. Yeah.
Jeez, I can't remember. I can't believe I remembered that name. But yeah, Danforth gets fucked up.
Yeah.
But it's kind of hard to explain because it's such an intrinsic thing to think the way we do now.
Yeah, absolutely. We would need to be shown different evidence, right? Because like we've got all this, we know our history, we know the Earth's history, we know like evolution and all that stuff, and like if we were shown something that completely contradicts that stuff, it would just be something that is like, how does this exist, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's something that it's hard to understand and hard to grasp, and so it's just interesting to see that and like play with that, because it's like how would you deal with that when you then find out that everything you knew is completely wrong?
Yeah, it's like if everything is, imagine if human society is pretty much built on science. Let's be honest. Like all the things that we do, engines, chemicals, electronic components, electricity, and things like that. Metals, things, everything is relatively well understood because it's science. But imagine for a moment imagine you went on like an expedition to a jungle and you found this old temple, and you went down to the old temple and you found something that basically says that human science is completely incorrect and we have just been barely grasping at something more.
Mm-hmm. How the fuck do you deal with that, right? Like,
yeah, how do you?
It's definitely hard to convey as well, and this will lead into your question here that you put, the what types of horror do you find work well or properly in Call of Cthulhu?
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to make something like that work.
It is. It's hard to describe something indescribable.
Exactly.
Or something intrinsic. There's an actual word for it. The way, think of it like this. If you try to explain to someone who has been blind for their entire life, try to explain blue.
Yeah.
You can't really say blue is this nice cool color. And I'm like, okay.
Right.
Since you've never seen color before, you don't have any input to know what's cool and what's hot or warm in conjunction with color.
Yeah, exactly. You have temperature, right? But that's a feeling. That's a pain or a, something's too hot or too cold, right? But
and we only associate colors with temperatures because we're shown that. And so that gap between people and that perception of things actually has a name. It's called qualia.
Oh, okay.
And at the moment, it is literally impossible to perfectly explain qualia between people.
Okay.
Another example of this is if you have two people who can see, how do you know that what I perceive as red is what you perceive as red?
Yeah, there's definitely that as well.
It's impossible to know.
Exactly. Like, yeah.
So that bleeds into Call of Cthulhu, where you have these things that are described as indescribable. You have things like Yog-Sothoth, who is literally an amorphous, bubbling, shifting mass of iridescent spheres. That's hard to describe.
Exactly. Like you can say what it is, right? Like you just described it, but you don't get the full picture just from the description, right? Because it's more than that.
Yeah. And there's also a problem with like Shoggoths.
Yep, them too.
Because they are an amorphous mass of roiling, black, tentacled, mouthed-eyed flesh. And they're dripping ichor and sludge and drool and offal from many different orifices. And it's hard to... You can describe it.
And like I've seen renditions, right? You can have renditions and stuff, but they're not all going to be the same. And like if you don't see the rendition, then you'll think of it in a different way than someone else, right?
Exactly.
Like, it's
so
difficult.
Yeah, it's very hard. But that's also what makes it so interesting and fun.
Oh yeah.
Because if you're playing D&D and you say, you see an orc over there, you know what an orc is.
Yeah, orcs are pretty easy to figure out.
They're pretty ubiquitous. There we go.
Yes. Yeah.
Or let's go even further. You see another person over there. You see a human, or you see a dragon, or a fish.
Yep.
But if I say you see a flying polyp over there, what?
Yeah.
But that imagination, sparking that fire in the imagination can be very, very fun.
Oh, yeah.
Which is why I've actually had a little bit of trouble deciding because, full disclosure, the Cthulhu campaign that I intend to run is using a monster that I came up with.
Oh, cool.
And so I actually asked this question previously. We talked about it a little bit.
Oh, the description question.
Yeah, well, it's actually more than that. Do you find that monsters that are hard to describe, like a Shoggoth, which do you find scarier? Monsters that have a definite shape or ones that don't?
Ooh.
Because it's two different fears.
Yeah.
It's fear of the unknown and ununderstandable, and fear of something that you can tell is clearly dangerous.
Right. Yeah.
So I had a lot of trouble coming up with how my monster should look.
Right. So I would say, as just this is personal take, right? Because I can only think of it on my own terms of like I don't fear things that are indescribable because I cannot comprehend them. Right? Like if I it's one of those things where since I can't comprehend it, I just won't. Right?
Yeah.
And so I don't think about it, so I'm just like, okay, so that's how it is, whatever. Right?
Yeah.
And that's how that goes for me as a person. But I don't know, because like in the sense of if you're encountering that, I then go, okay, if the character encounters that, then they are seeing it, right?
Yeah.
And that gives me the sense of like, okay, so then if I were to see something that I could not fucking understand physically at all, even though I'm watching it, I'm looking at it, then I would freak out.
Yeah.
I would personally freak out.
It's kind of like the only example I can think of is one time I don't even know how we wound up here. I was actually in like a club, and it was not like a late night dance club or anything.
Sure.
And they did have a dance floor, and they had a strobe light going on.
Okay.
And I was basically just off doing my own thing. It wasn't like full. It hadn't really been open. It was kind of like a beta test between like close friends of the people who owned it. And I had a strobe light going, and I was just kind of off on my own, and I was just kind of moving my hand in the strobe light.
Oh yeah.
And you know how strobe lights
they make
it
look
so
weird.
Things like they move in a really jittery, jutting manner. It's like that. Because, like, I'm seeing it move. I know what I'm doing, but my brain is having trouble comprehending what's going on.
Yeah.
It's like that.
Okay. Yeah.
And then the other thing is that you also run into the problem, at least for me personally. When I see Cthulhu himself, I don't really find, at least me, again, if I was 1920s, investigator, I saw that shit, holy fuck.
Oh, yeah.
I don't really find Cthulhu scary.
Yeah, his depictions don't make him scary.
They really don't, because he's basically just like a bipedal guy with wings and an octopus
rad as
face.
fuck, yeah.
He's awesome, but I don't find him all that scary.
Yeah.
Whereas something like, Shub-Niggurath.
Okay.
Shub-Niggurath is kind of scary. Here, wait,
yeah.
I'll get a picture.
Yeah. I think it also has to do with just the fact that Cthulhu is more of a pop culture icon at this point.
Yeah.
Because, like, everybody knows, well, most people know what Cthulhu is at this point, because he's been tossed around so much and referenced in so many, like, things.
Yeah, here's Shub-Niggurath. I'll put it in, in TableTalk.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah. So that one is she is often described as being a fluid / misty amorphous mass of indescribable tentacles, maws, eyes, and the only thing that's really definitive about her is her goat-like hooves and feet. Right. And yet it's so strange. It's hard. But again, that's why I like it.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
I like it because of that.
It's so...
Because it's forcing you to try to comprehend something incomprehensible.
Right, exactly.
And you have to step outside your normal thinking. And when you do that, you're placing yourself in a vulnerable position, mentally, at least.
Absolutely.
Because you are... Everything that you live around, you can comprehend very, very well.
Yes.
Humans are pretty good at that. But then when you start... There's a funny line from Zay Frank, who did True Facts About a Mantis Shrimp And the exact line is, imagine a color you can't even imagine. Now do it 9 more times. But imagine a color you can't imagine.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's one of those things where it's like, how do you do that, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and yet you have to do it.
right.
You have to.
Right.
And it's so cool.
Oh yeah, it's really a really interesting way to look at things. And like I'm a coward by nature, and I get scared by a lot of things. A lot of things that aren't that scary. And like most of my days, I go through and go, oh, hey, that's a little, I don't like that. But whether it be a bug, whether it be an animal, you know, anything, like legitimately, I am a coward. But when I find like myself getting into something like a movie or something, I will also find myself thinking more along the lines of, this is a real thing, right? Like I will trick myself into finding myself being more scared of my own room when it's dark, because I just got into a situation of I was a little afraid, and now I am afraid of everything, right? Every noise is a little bit more terrifying and all that. And even though it's the same noises that I just didn't pay any attention to, like, throughout all of my days, but now, at this moment, I notice every noise, and I'm like, shit!
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, like, things like this, I'm like, yeah, it's fucking creepy, absolutely, and if it's drawn in such a way that I'm like, oh, that's even worse, right? It depends entirely on, like, my perception at that time, right? Because like I have this thing about eyes. Oh man, like eyes in general, like if they're too wide, and I don't know if this is just because my eyes are like naturally kind of closed, like a little more droopy, but like if somebody has their eyes wide open in like you know that have you seen, what's it called? Doki Doki Literature Club?
I have not seen it. I know about it though.
Okay. Well, there's a character who no. That too, that whole thing scared me because I'm fucking terrified easily. But the character, one of the paths you can go down is one of the characters who she gets like obsessed with you and like stabby and like that
Yandere.
That was like, yeah, she becomes a yandere-ish. And like that I was like, yeah, okay, that's fine. But once her eyes opened, like, and became the tiny pupils but wide, the wide whites, that started to freak me out, because I was just like,
What's her name?
I don't remember. I can't remember.
Let's see here. Doki lit characters.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay. So there is Sayori.
She's purple haired, I believe.
Yuri.
Yeah, Yuri. Yep. Yuri.
Okay. Yuri, let's see here. Yuri
she gets
stab.
Cutty, she gets stabby, she gets possessive, and like her eyes get really fucking big. And it's just not like that. I've seen it with people who just on TV who just get wide-eyed but like smile and stuff still.
Is
it
this one?
Yeah, it's that one. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. I'll get rid of it.
You're fine. But it's literally, it's that kind of like thing where it's like I see when eyes are different, I'm like, fuck, I can't deal with that, right? Well, I can, but it's like I don't want to, right?
Yeah.
And that's why, hey, guess what out there? You get to learn something personal about me. That's why frog eyes, can't deal with them.
Owl eyes.
Sometimes. It really does depend, right? Like, I don't know. It's just like, it's just the strangeness of having, like, with frog eyes, they're black and just like a void, basically. And then I look at that and I go, I don't like that. It's the same thing when I look up into space. Like, or I look up at, like, the sky, right? Like, if I'm just lying on my back and I look up at the sky for too long, it's too big. It's just, like, nothing's there, and I feel like I'm gonna fall into it in a way, right?
Oh.
It's really weird. I'm bad at this life thing. Many things scare
That's why
me.
I like overcast days.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. But like, I like space. That's the problem.
Yeah, me too. I love space. It's weird.
If I was in space, though, I'd freak out.
No, me too. Fuck that.
Okay.
I don't want to go there until we've like perfected space travel.
I don't even know if I would want to.
I know it's not going to happen in my lifetime, so I'm pissed about that.
Put me in a pod and never let me look outside, and I'll be okay. I don't want to know.
Basically, it's just like an elevator.
Yep. Don't want to know.
So now, my question was actually somewhat different.
Yeah.
The types of horror. The kind of horror that I meant was, you know how there is, let's see, in Call of Cthulhu and a lot of other things, it's fear of the unknown.
Yes.
And if you're being attacked by a bear, that's fear of the natural. You know what's going on. Something's going to try to kill you.
I don't want to die.
And then you have like a slasher movie where you're being stalked. Mm-hmm. But then you've also got things like body horror.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, and so like different kinds of horror like that. What kind of horrors do you think work well or badly in Call of Cthulhu? Because this came around when, again, full disclosure, I am paying an artist friend of mine to create lots and lots of handouts for the Call of Cthulhu campaign that I'm making. And when I was describing the things that I want her to create, she came out and said, "There's a lot of blank horror in this." And I'm like, "Oh shit, yeah, you're right. There is. Does this translate well?"
Okay.
And yeah, like I didn't know because I can't easily, because I'm human, I can't easily quantify or describe things that are unquantifiable or indescribable from a human perspective.
Right.
So I chose to go with a monster that has a definitive shape.
Right.
So I went with what scares me personally.
Right. Okay.
So, it is not all the traditional type of the horror that she described, but I noticed that it is a common thread. And it made me concerned that I'm choosing something that scares me, but does that translate well to Call of Cthulhu? Because Call of Cthulhu has a very, very specific niche, kinda, sorta, where once you go off that path, it's not really Lovecraftian anymore. If your story focuses on dealing with simple killers and murderers, you're not playing Call of Cthulhu, you're playing Gumshoe.
Right, yeah. Okay.
So
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, like I didn't know.
Yeah, so I think that honestly it depends, right? Like I mean, what Lovecraft did was his own like horrors that he then manifested, right? Like he was afraid of all that shit. Like an air conditioner, he was afraid of that, but he made it so that it was about a zombie man who loved his room being really cold because otherwise he would decay.
I actually really, really loved Cool Air.
Yeah, it's cool.
I loved Cool Air.
Yeah,
anyway,
it's but like you can take that and you can make it into something like that, right?
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying is like what you're afraid of can be translated into something Lovecraftian, absolutely. Like I think that's definitely possible. And like for types of horror, I think most work.
As long as As long as you're able to convincingly weave it into an
Yes.
overarching background Lovecraftian plot.
Exactly. Like it has to tie into being something bigger than it is, right? Like something that makes you eventually go existential and go, "Oh, my life. It doesn't really mean that much." Or something like that, right? And even without doing that, it's still like things that are horrifying are going to be kind of creepy and bad, right? And this is also the problem with us being very desensitized as well. Like,
true.
We all of us enjoy our horror movies, and like body horror in general is like I haven't watched The Fly yet because of the eyes of flies, and I don't want to see that, but I want to see that at the same time, right? But it's one of those things where, like, I've seen body horror, I've seen just regular killings in horror movies, I've seen, you know, like, all that kind of stuff, and so it's harder to make me as a person go, when it's, like, make-believe, right?
Yeah, it's true.
And so that's why I try to embody the character as much as possible, because it's like, maybe, you know, this character hasn't seen all that shit, so I have to act it as realistically as I can, being that person, which, as I am naturally a coward, it's not too hard. How would I act towards anything like that? I don't know. I guess I'll just go. Be in a cold sweat for a while. But yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where it super depends, I think. It's not a very satisfying answer.
No, that's a satisfying answer.
Okay.
Because, like, even if it is just kind of reinforcing the ideas that I already had, it's good to have that reinforcement, because now I know that it's less wrong, I guess.
I don't know. It's just one of those things where we're just gonna have to play it by ear at that point, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, like, a short answer can be a satisfying answer.
Okay.
Hey, you want to go kill that guy? No. Got it.
Oh, all right. Pretty satisfying, I suppose.
Yeah, that's closure.
Yeah. All right. Well, now that we've gone through our stuff, our little questions here, let's move on to the video. This will be our final video of the night, and it is how best to run Call of Cthulhu by someone called Drowbard.
I think I may have seen this.
Okay, I haven't.
Wait,
I haven't at all.
I'm subscribed to him? What?
Oh, so you totally have then.
Yeah, okay, I definitely have. Okay,
all right.
Let's see.
Well, here we go. Hate that.
Loud.
Hate that. Hate that. Hate that.
Greetings, role players. Welcome back to the corner. It's Halloween month, which means it's going to be horror role playing for every episode in October.
Oh. You had an Ash picture there. That was interesting. By the way, fucking the Call of Cthulhu Dark Corners of the Earth game, not great.
No.
It's not great.
The Call of Cthulhu, horror role-playing at its finest. Let's delve into this dark and mysterious world and see if we can't make this something you'll remember for the rest of your life. Today's episode comes at you in extra scary Cthulhu vision, so let's just get that on there. There we go.
Nice.
Oh, the eyes.
So Cthulhu has a beautiful 1920s American backdrop.
See, it's one of those things where it's like, it depends, right? Like, I'm fine with this. I don't know. It's like...
Even the Black Voids?
Yeah. It's like, it's different with it being drawn in such a way, because, like, I don't know. It's one of those things. I mean, it's creepy. I'll give you that. Like, fucking eyes on the forehead and all that. But, like... and like voids of eyes, but I'm not like really that terrified by this. I don't know. Weird things.
Yep.
This is what sets it apart from other role-playing games. It's not a game of wizards and monsters.
Well, I mean, it is, but
It has them, yeah.
While those elements do exist within the game,
Oh, well.
they're always hidden. They're always in the dark. There's something no one ever truly sees. And it's only through investigation that you discover the presence of such creatures. The horror really comes into the game when you realize that you are the only people that know of the presence or absence of these individuals, or their teachings within the world. The isolation that comes from knowing those things is when you try to share your experiences with the world, no one believes you. People think you're crazy, or they just dismiss your evidence.
Yeah, that is definitely actually something that I didn't think about for a horror aspect. Like the knowledge that you gained, no one else will understand.
Mm-hmm.
That is actually like
It's bad.
Yeah, no, like how does that feel, you know? Like I actually am quite curious. Like it would feel really fucking bad, I assume. But like I'm curious to like actually have that knowledge, cuz the I'm not to say that people who believe in like I guess like really weird like versions of reality, right? Like where they're like if I oh no, let's go with I heard of a story recently through some videos that were that it was about a woman who was completely convinced that this person was in love with her, right?
Okay.
And that everything she did for him was like good, and like he had ultimate like authority over her and shit. It was very strange, but she was clearly like out of it, right? There was something wrong with her, and she believed this shit to a T, and like she didn't kill, she was like broke into his house, took a bath in his bath, and had a knife on her in her car that was a big butcher's knife, and like she didn't think that was a problem, she didn't think she had it, like all this kind of stuff, like all the things that she was doing she didn't think were weird, she thought they were completely okay, right? How is it to feel that way when everyone else does not feel the same way?
Yeah.
Quite literally everyone.
Yeah.
It's
well, not only that. How is it to feel that you believe that, and then you find out that no one else believed that? They think you're crazy just for thinking that.
Right.
So you're not only are you in an uncaring area, you're in a hostile area.
Yeah, exactly. Like that is the whole concept of like finding out about this universe, right? The hidden universe of the actual mythos.
Yeah.
Where it's like now everybody that you ever talk to about it, unless they were there with you or have had a similar experience, they will never think that you are sane.
Yeah, they will not think you're well.
Like they will commit you because they just don't know about it, right? Like and it's completely foreign and goes against anything that they have.
Yep.
It's that whole thing of like when you have contradictory evidence to your entire being, like do you just dismiss it? Do you just go, that's not right, fuck it, right?
You're alone in a crowd.
Yes, exactly. It's just
weird.
It's a strange feeling, strange thing to think about.
So it is a wonderful experience of being alone in the dark. Even having a group of you just being isolated from the rest of the world, it really is a terrifying game if you truly wish to immerse yourself in it.
Gotta say, my man, you gotta work on your sound mixing there. I don't know how old this video is,
Even
but
though there are no hard and fast rules for role-playing, there are some that you want to stick to when it comes to Call of Cthulhu. For example, you don't want to have a group of more than, say, 5 people. You want one keeper to run the game and maybe 3 to 4 players. That's probably the most you can handle. What you have to understand is the fear of isolation and the fear of failure is much greater when the numbers are fewer. Another rule that really works for Call of Cthulhu, and it might seem really kind of like common sense, but unfortunately you really do have to follow this one. You can't play it in a public environment. So if you have a club that plays the game, or if you're in a sort of say a public house and you game, or if you like to game on your lunch breaks, perhaps if you're in school, then this is not going to be the environment for this game. There is no possible way that you can immerse yourself in the horror of being alone when there are distractions going on all around you.
I mean, yes and no.
It'd certainly be harder.
It would definitely be harder, yeah, but like yes and no, right? Like you could
Yeah.
you could just ignore that stuff, I assume.
Yeah.
Like, unless they're going and actively, like, taking you out of it, of, like, people are coming up to you and going, hey, how's it going? Like, I guess
Yeah.
that would suck, but I don't know, man.
Now, I understand people do this anyway, they play their games privately, but for those of you who do have like a club, or do like to say play in school, you're going to find that this experience is much more enhanced when you are literally alone in the dark. You've probably noticed the ambient music playing in the background. It's only
very
there
much so.
to create a little bit of tension. But the same is true when you're actually doing your role playing. If you have, say, a CD player or something, and just stick on some rain music or some thunderstorm music, it can really help to bring the environment to life a little. Even if you're playing the game on those hot summer days, you can still have that dark, wet, thunderstorm happening in the background. Another little thing, just little tricks here and there that you could try. Perhaps you could, if you have a couple of those electronic photo frames that changes the picture from time to time, you could really use it to kind of mess with the players a little. It's a bit of fun and it's a bit gimmicky, but it sounds like a laugh. You can have photos that will look one way, and then when they look again, they're staring in a different direction. Or perhaps.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be so cool.
Yeah, right. That'd be great.
Fuck. Well, too bad Corona's out there.
Yep.
Well. Oh well.
But yeah, that's a really good idea.
Yeah, no, I never thought of that. That sounds pretty cool.
Another one that can be really good is like electronic candles.
Ooh, yeah. I actually bought my mom a set of those because I don't know. It's like, you like candles, but also like, how about when they don't burn?
How about when they don't burn out?
Yeah, exactly. And so but yeah, using those to just like have the remote with you and just dim and like brighten when needed. Oh man, yeah, you can make it really atmospheric.
One of the things that sucks is that a lot of these scented candle companies don't really make like salty harbor wind candles.
That would be good, yeah.
I know. If you're like in Innsmouth,
yeah, have
like old rotting wood and fucking salty air.
That would be really cool. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Somebody get on that, dude. Right?
I know. I would love it if people made scented candles that had like weird smells.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, Jelly Belly made fucking Bean Boozled. Come on.
Yeah, exactly, right?
There's a market for it.
Switch. Have an image of a cosmic horror or something. So again, just fun little tweaks that help to really immerse the players and give them that feeling that something isn't quite natural, something isn't quite right, or even that the very place that they're sitting in isn't as predictable as they think it is. Because when it comes to players' perceptions and their perception of control of their environment, that can really help them to immerse themselves in that feeling of hopelessness. Another fun little trick that you could try is those little devices that you stick in your electric outlet, and then it allows you to turn them on and off via a remote switch. This can be hilarious fun if you like hook it up to like a lamp or something, so that just as the players are getting into the swing of things, you're turning on and off lights or turning on and off stereo.
Fuck, that'd be fun, dude.
And then
no, it'd be super cool. The only thing that I have with this so far is like, best to run Call of Cthulhu. Sure, it would enhance it a lot, right? Like, this is definitely something where it's like, do you have the money to spend to get a clapper, right? Or any of that kind of stuff. Like, I mean, it would definitely enhance it. Absolutely, if you want to invest in that shit, go for it, dude. That'd be super cool. But I don't know. I think you can still have that same ambiance with just like using a laptop just to play some music when you need to, or like just have everybody envision it with their theater of the mind. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
They're a bit confused as to why or how you're doing it. So again, it can just add to that feeling of that lack of control.
It's so jarring.
I've turned mine way down.
So how do you describe horror role-playing to someone who's never done it before? You can understand the concept of role-playing where you assume the identity of a character, and then you follow the storyline and perform the tasks that the person in charge is telling you. But what is it about horror that we need to understand more fully? It might be best to think of horror like a wave in the ocean. It rises and it falls. It's kind of calm and then it's like a storm. It crashes against the rocks. And if you think of it in this way, you begin to understand how the tension and relaxation of the environment works. You have to have a build-up. You have to have a build-up in horror. You can't just have nothing happening for the entire game. And likewise, you can't have terror running around all the time. You have to have some kind of release. So you want to work on this theory of an escalating tension until you get to a breaking point where something truly magnificent or terrifying or a big point happens, and then you want to let it fall away. This becomes very important because what happens is if you put the players in a comfortable environment where it's a gentle breeze or it's sunny or there's lots of people running around, as soon as something happens that's dangerous, like say someone gets killed, it stops being horrific and it starts becoming comical to the point where people are just saying, "Wow, look, someone else died."
Okay, I mean.
But the thing is, you still have to have that part where someone dies and then it can't just be death the whole time. You can't, because you yourself were saying it rises and falls.
Yeah. Like
it's going to happen, and things will eventually kind of, as things do, life goes on.
Right, exactly. I understand what he's saying in the sense of if you're in an environment in which you're not as immersed, I suppose, and you're not like thinking about it as like in the terms of the actual like world that you're in the game, then it would just seem like a nothing death. But I would venture to say that most people who are going to be playing, you'll have times where you joke around in the group and stuff, but when you get to those moments of actual serious like tension and stuff, like you'll have people going, "Oh fuck," right? And then once something happens, they'll go, "Fuck." And they'll like,
and then when things are done, they're like, "Fuck."
Yeah, exactly. Like it's definitely it's one of those things where it's just it depends on the players, I guess, more so, and the group that you're running. And I assume that you would know your group, unless you're running this for the very first time, and in
which case I would say don't do Call of Cthulhu for your first RPG.
Well, no, I would say it's fine. It's just that you need to understand, you need to actually understand the mood that you want to set, right? Like if you're committed to playing this kind of setting of a horrific kind of setting, then make sure that you take that seriously, right?
Yeah.
Make it so that those moments are the moments that are taken seriously. You can joke around and all that shit no matter what. Absolutely. Fun times, when you're walking around, going to the shop and all that shit. But when something actually happens, that's when you go, "All right, guys, this is the shit." Right?
Because that's kind of one of the best. It's one of the best. I've thought of this for a little while. It's one of the best tools that humanity has at its disposal, and that is laughter, jokes. Because you can belittle and laugh at some of the worst things in the world. You can laugh at death. You can belittle robbery. You can make it so that it doesn't have nearly as much control over your emotional response. But there are times and things that you can't laugh at. You wouldn't be telling jokes if you're actively running away from a slavering, drooling, angry wolf,
right,
that's chasing you. You're in full-on flight mode. You're not really making jokes to make yourself feel better. You're riding an adrenaline high.
Yeah, the jokes come after when you've made it into safety And it's been a little bit,
and then you're decompressing, you're unwinding.
Absolutely.
That is the only time that you can really do that.
Yeah, like and I
like effectively.
Right. And like I'm pretty sure that like laughter is one of the things that was like it's traced back to when we were, the cavemen, and you needed to have a way to make sure that everyone knew that things were safe.
Yes.
Right? And so laughter is one of those things. Like yawning and laughter, I think, are those kinds of things where it's just like, okay, we're fine.
You do it in a safe situation.
Yeah, exactly. And it just makes you feel better. And so when you make people laugh, it just makes people feel better because it's that whole like psychological thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. So,
yeah, you can have jokes in Call of Cthulhu. There's a time and a place for them. The time is not when you're actively fighting the monster, unless it's Pulp Cthulhu. You shouldn't be spouting out one-liners.
Right.
Unless your character's insane.
Yeah, that or like you fought a bunch of wolves many a time, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. Because then
you have experience.
Then it's not horrifying. It's just run of the mill at this point for that person. It's run of the mill.
Exactly. So
yeah. And one of the most important things to remember is that it's similar to bards in Dungeons and Dragons. A lot of people will say, or rogues, this can also apply to rogues. A lot of people will say that bluffing is one of the best skills that you can possibly have as a face character. And that's true. Because if you're good at role-playing, you can bluff your way through a lot of stuff.
It's true.
You can think of it as simply as this. If you are in a place and you want to go somewhere where you don't belong, act like you belong there.
Yep. Yeah,
it's as simple as that. You don't sneak around, peeking around every corner and like shying away from people and looking weird. You strut in there confidently and you act as though you're meant to be there. And people most likely won't really question it.
There are actually many examples. I can't think of any right now, but I know there are examples of people just doing that in real life. Where they would just go into, like, I think there is even examples of, like, somebody going into, like, a hospital and pretending to be a doctor because they could. They just pretended that they were a doctor. They just immediately were like, yeah, I'm a doctor, whatever. And then, like, people discovered it later and they were like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Right?
And if you want to think of it in a more tangible sense, I guess, think of the movie Beverly Hills Cop, where there are usually like 2 to 3 scenes in that movie of it was Eddie Murphy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, where Eddie Murphy is fucking bluffing his way through every situation. He's just like yelling and being loud and boisterous, and he's acting like he's an authority when he's talking to the construction people working on that mansion. They're like, "Oh no, they changed the plans. We got new plans. They're gonna have to come back a week later." It's like, "Oh, damn it." And they leave. And then he gets to stay in a mansion for a week. Or he's in customs. It's like, where is this? I need to see this form. I'm from the inspection agency. This guy's lighting a cigarette on the job. And the guy's like, did you? I mean, yeah. It's like, and it's not like, so you just act like that.
Yeah.
So, where was I going with this?
Bluffing, very important.
Bards, basically, what I was going to get at is that you have humor to offset the horror.
Right. Oh, yes. Yep.
Because if you have these highs, and then the lows feel lower. And so it's totally fine to have humor in a game. There's just a time and a place for it. Oh, that's what I was saying. But don't overdo it. Like bluffing.
Right. Yes.
So if you're a bard and you're bluffing every single scenario, it starts to get old. It starts to become you're a one-trick pony. All you ever do is you bluff, and then your failures stand out more than your successes, as is with most things. But yeah, so even with a skill as useful as bluffing, don't overdo it with the humor. You have to make sure that it remains effective. Because if you're joking after every little thing, it's diminishing returns with your jokes.
Yeah.
You have to joke after a big encounter and then hold off. Joke after a big encounter, and then hold off. Unless something is basically just like it's just begging to be joked about, you know?
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's one of those things where humor is it does have timing. Like timing is a very big important like
comedic timing.
Comedic timing. Hey.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway,
that was a long diatribe.
Ruin my ears. What? What was that?
I have no idea.
Okay.
So you want to make sure that your players are immersed in a world that's cold, it's raining, it's windy, it's thunderous,
sure.
And it's not all sunshine and rainbows, because if you're not getting the setting correct, then people aren't going to experience the horror in the way that you want them to. You're not looking to keep your players on edge all the time, but what you are looking to do is to keep them wary constantly. You want your players to always be looking over their shoulder, but to never really see too much. You don't want to give them too much too soon, and you definitely want them to make headway and progress on their own terms. So the best thing you can do is just always be looking to throw a spanner in the works somewhere. And what I mean by this is the best horror experience comes from the fact that you don't have any control over the situation. And I'll give you a quick example. So in a most recent role-playing game that I ran for a small private party, we had a situation where a member of the group went off into a single corridor to investigate. When they rounded the corner, they were greeted by a terrifying sight, one that caused a massive sanity loss and caused their character to go into uncontrolled fits of hysteria.
Nice.
Now, the other two party members did their best to calm and control the situation and help him. However, it was at this point I decided to introduce the horror element. Something was moving down the corridor, something shuffling, something imposing, and they couldn't actually do anything about it. They just had to wait and hope that the thing would pass them. And this was an amazing success, as I could actually read the experience on their faces. You can really see the people trying to think, oh my god, what will happen if that thing comes this way? What will happen if it decides to stop and check this corridor? It really was a great experience for the players, and it was a fun experience for me as the keeper as well. Another way to really
so yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, they weren't really not in control of the situation because they could have just run.
Yeah, they had control, definitely.
Unless they were in like a room that they couldn't get out of, I guess.
So they were in a corridor.
But he specifically said corridor twice.
Right, and a corridor usually has two entrances / exits, right? Like
it's a tunnel.
Yeah, exactly. A corridor goes somewhere. Whether or not that went into a dead end or not, I don't know, right? But so having them look over the shoulder and not what was it?
Keeping them wary.
Yeah, keeping them wary, but not like throwing things at them all the time. I understand that. That's fair.
But it shouldn't be all the time.
Yeah, I don't,
because eventually it's going to become commonplace.
Yeah, well, that's what he's saying, but also like what I assume is you are throwing once it gets to a certain point, you're gonna be throwing a lot of things at them.
Yes.
Right? Because it's one of those things where once you like let's say that people or that your investigators learn that there are serpent people.
There already are, but yes.
Right, but right, but in the game they learn now, oh, there's a lot of serpent people in the city, and then they start noticing different things of like there are people that just do like certain actions that are a little strange, right? Like
they live.
Yeah, exactly. They live. Yeah, absolutely. Like they have this thing happen where they start noticing this shit, and like at that point, then you start throwing that kind of stuff all around at them, and then it escalates the scenes to like, oh god, if we do anything like like make them know that we know,
Yeah.
we're fucked, right?
But you still have to act.
Oh, absolutely. And so it's just it would definitely add to that scene and that whole experience, I would think, right?
Yeah.
And like with his example, having somebody go into hysterics and then have something go by that is like who knows what it is, right? But it doesn't sound human, so it's just it definitely does build that tension of like, is it going to come down the corridor because this guy is hysterical right now and we're kind of unable to really get him to do anything or move or anything? I assume that's the situation. I don't know. But also, in the situation, is the guy not making noise? Like,
yeah.
I have many questions to your example that I need clarification on so that I can understand it more, because it sounds well and good, absolutely, but I then start questioning, like, I don't know, hysterical people usually don't shut up.
Yeah, that's what hysterics are.
Right?
Unless they made like a psychology roll and actually like forcibly quote unquote calmed him down and got him to shut the hell up.
Or like stuff something in their mouth or something. Like, I don't know.
But what I don't understand is that he rounded the corner and was face to face with something,
right?
And it drove him insane.
Yeah.
And then it didn't attack him, even though now they're afraid of it attacking them?
I assume it's just some sort of, like, situation where it's, like, maybe a hanging body or, you know, like, something innocuous. Again, very vague.
Yeah. Honestly, I would have done it a different way.
Sure.
What I would have done is you're walking down a corridor, and who's in the back? I am.
Yeah.
Make a luck check. Okay, you fail. And the ceiling collapses, and you injure your leg, and now you can't walk. And so the two people ahead of you are fine. They're like, "Oh shit, are you okay? I can't walk." It's like, "Oh shit, we're gonna have to like carry him out of here." And then because of the sound of the ceiling collapsing, that's what draws in the monster. And so they're in a corridor, and their escape has been cut off.
Mm-hmm.
Then the stakes are a bit higher because it's coming forward and you can still hide in like the shadow. Maybe you could pull some of the wreckage over in front of you and hide behind it. Mm-hmm. But I feel like that makes a little bit more sense because not to mention the guy's just injured and he can't walk. So he can't really run past it and you don't want to leave him behind.
Right. Yeah. I again, he made it a very vague scenario that and like it's one of those things where wouldn't you want to give us the full context a little bit?
Yeah, especially because he keeps going on. It's like, oh man, it was a great moment. And like if it's a great moment, you probably remember it a little clearer than that.
Yeah, and I'm over here going like, well, doesn't sound like. I mean, it sounds fine, but I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I can't even. Yeah, it's weird.
The other thing that I was kind of weirded out by was like he said that the guy encountered something horrific that made him hysterical, right?
Yes.
And then he decided to put in the horror?
Yeah.
Which is the monster? And I'm like, okay, so you want to put in more horror. Yeah. Because you've already got a scenario that is technically horrific. And then that's just semantics, I guess. I don't know, but yeah, like it's still this whole example is very strange. I don't know.
Yeah,
I get what he's going for, but it's a
strange example.
Yeah, it just needs to be less vague and more specific.
Yeah.
Drive home the fact that the players don't have any control over their environment is to take away their safe spaces. So, for example, if they think that they can go to the authorities and they are going to protect them, that they're going to give them a shelter from the crazy cult that is working away underneath the city, then the keeper needs to turn this on its head and it needs to start accusing the players. When bodies start turning up in the players' vicinity, then they're going to have the finger pointed at them. This is going to scare the players. And this is also going to then start to blend in with the fact that, you know, people don't believe in monsters. People don't believe in sorcery. So what will then happen is when those things are being questioned, everyone's just going to think that the players are insane. That coupled with the things that they've seen, that coupled with the actual spells and magics that they might have found and used, they're going to start questioning themselves. They're going to start saying, well, are we going insane?
Probably not.
Well, I mean, that's fair. I mean, you could have that happen, absolutely. But the thing that I have issue with more so is you need to start pointing the finger and stuff. Like, you can.
Yeah, you can.
It depends on the players. It depends on the scenarios. It depends on all these kinds of things. I can see, like, if they were to go to the police and they are actually under, they're part of the cult, right? And so they act like, yeah, okay, we'll take care of things, and then they start covering it up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, nobody knows that this is happening because they're just going in and covering it up. And every time they go through, they're like, oh, hey, yeah, you know what? Oh, we'll take care of it. We know you're not part of it. We know you're working towards it. It's fine, right?
Yeah.
And they act like they're allies, like what Sandy was talking about, right? They act like they're allies, but they're actually against them in the sense that they're just covering this shit up, and every record of it that they've been trying to find, like, when they go back to get records to show people and such, they're gone. They've never existed. The bodies are gone. Nothing is documented. And so they go, what the fuck? And then they start thinking, oh shit, are they a part of the cult? Right?
Yeah.
Like, then it gets to them, and then they're like, oh no, this goes even deeper than we thought.
And now they're on to us.
Exactly, right?
And they know we're on to them.
Exactly.
And another thing that you can do is that depending on your setting, like say you set it in New York, and you have a character who is like a police detective in New York.
Yeah.
They might believe them.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, this is a whole like cop social circle thing.
Sure.
Cop culture, there we go.
Yeah.
Police culture thing here. They're not really likely to think that another one of their own, certainly not a detective, is going batshit without a little bit of evidence.
Right. Yeah.
Because they might believe it if a hobo comes up with torn up clothes smelling like piss and liquor.
Right.
If he says, oh, I saw a monster down in the sewer, they're going to throw him away. Or throw him in jail.
Like,
but if a cop comes up well-dressed and like flashes badge, hey, it's me. I saw something down in the sewers. I need to request some men to help me search it.
Yeah.
They'll probably be like, okay.
Yeah, no, it would go through the proper channels, like all that kind of stuff. If you're in that scenario, and like,
you can do it multiple different ways.
Absolutely,
it doesn't have to be this way,
right? Like,
and it really depends on your players and their professions and how they choose to present their case.
Yeah, that's the most important thing.
One of the most important things that is if you choose to run a Call of Cthulhu adventure, you need one of the most important things to think of, and actually I am guilty of not thinking of this yet, but it's okay because it's still years out. If you have it set in in one major city, or if you have it set across multiple cities, you need to come up with the disposition of law enforcement.
Yes.
Are they skeptical? Are they hostile? Are they bumbling? Are they friendly? Are they helpful?
Exactly, yeah.
You really need to think about that, because cops and police departments are all very different.
Yeah, definitely. If recent times haven't proven that, right? Like, legitimately.
Yeah.
Come on.
Like the cops in New York and Minneapolis and Chicago, they're batshit meat-headed
There's a lot of
murder boners.
Yeah, it's really annoying.
And then the cops where I live are all super nice.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
you can just walk up and have a conversation with one of them if you wanted. But like that's one thing that's very, very important that you need to do.
Yeah, I would agree entirely. Like, law enforcement is an integral part of society.
Yes.
And
there's, unless they have a reason not to, your players and the investigators don't have a reason to not go to the police.
Exactly.
Unless they know that they're hostile or they're potentially in the cult. If they think they'll help, okay, I can think of one reason why the players might not want to go to the cops, other than like the obvious ones of them being in the cult or hostile.
Sure.
The reason could be that your players just don't want to get them involved. Maybe they have friends or relatives who are cops, and they're like, they work a dangerous job. Let's not make it any more dangerous for them. We can handle this. We're the ones in the know. It can be as simple as that.
That or like, they might fuck it up, right?
Exactly, that too.
Like, stuff like that. Like it's important to make sure that you have all facets of your cities, your people, just like you understand how they would be. You don't need to have like detailed things for every person. Just have a general thing of like, these people are going to be fine, these people are going to be like less trusting, these people are going to be right. It spans over the entirety of the setting, I would say.
Yes,
and the whole adventure of just like who is how, or not, you know what I mean? Who is how?
Yeah,
how
exactly.
are they?
How is who?
Have we gone off the deep end? You want to make them feel that they aren't always safe. There's got to be no place that they can go where the horror won't be lurking behind them.
Okay, so
no.
So here's the thing, right?
I understand it, but I disagree.
Yeah, exactly. Just to be clear, even if they're safe, they're not safe.
Yes.
Right? Like, that's what he's trying to say, but he's saying it in a way of, like, it's a little strange, because if you go to the cops and the cops are, like, fine, they're just cops, and you're just like, hey, and they're like, hey, we'll help you, yeah, sure, then you're safe, but the threat is still there. Right?
Yeah, that's what he needed to say.
Exactly. Like you could go back to your own house. The threat still exists, and if it's a human or more human threat that doesn't know, like, that's like a cult that could find out where you live, like, then you're not safe, right? Like,
then you're not safe because they're tracking your ass.
Exactly. And so, like, you can have safe areas away from the immediate threats, but the threats are still out there.
Yes.
So, and like,
because again, going back to the horror being a wave, you have to have high points where you can joke and relax and unwind. That's part of actually, even in the rules of the game, the investigator development phase where you're boosting up your stats.
Yeah. You
specifically have to do that in a safe area.
Yeah.
So,
like, even if you just have it be when they go get food at a diner.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly. Just because they're going into a diner to get a burger doesn't mean there's a fucking deep one who's cooking them their burgers.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I assume that's what he's going for.
Yeah.
I hope that's what he's going for, but he put it in a way that's just
it's hard it's hard to figure out.
It doesn't sound right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't mean in the literal sense. I mean in the figurative sense. So make sure that there are always eyes watching. Make sure that you keep that paranoia up.
Okay, apologies for not letting you finish there, because I thought...
That's okay.
But we do that, you know?
So every great role-playing session has to end eventually. And you want to make sure that with Call of Cthulhu, like any other game, you end it on a high note, on some kind of cliffhanger, something that makes the players want to come back. This works really nicely with the tension and relaxation, the escalation and drop of the horror element. Really push for the investigation. If they're getting close to something, really ramp up the intensity. When the horror reaches its absolute peak, when your players are really involved and engaged, that's when you can call an end to your session. It's not only leaves them wanting more, but it also leaves them fearful of what might be around the corner. There's just one more thing you want to do when you're ending the horror role-playing experience, and that's to make sure the characters have achieved something, but perhaps they've also risked a lot in doing so. You never want to have a truly happy ending in a horror scenario.
Oh, sure.
You always want to make sure that whatever happens is going to affect them in some way. You're not trying to fight against the players, you're trying to be the rules arbiter and provide a great story for the people to enjoy. But what you need to understand is that there's not going to be a happy ending. You have to involve the players to such an extent where, yes, they're gaining information, but every time they gain something, perhaps they lose a little bit of themselves. When you finally come to end your game, you want the players to understand the futility of their efforts. it's not that you want to diminish anything that they've accomplished, but you need them to understand that it doesn't really matter how much information they gain, how much horrors they manage to stop from the minions or the cults or whatever. The big bad, the thing that they're worshipping will always, if it chooses to, be able to manifest in the world, and there is no stopping it.
Yeah, that's true. But we went a bit past it, but he said you want to or need to end your sessions always when they're totally in that moment of like terror, right?
Yeah.
And like yeah, it's good for cliffhangers if you do like a cliffhanger one where it's like, oh shit, something's gonna happen, right? But you can also have it be where they've, you know, accomplished something. And at the end, they're just like, okay, and now you guys are going to bed and we'll pick up next time, right?
Yeah.
Like, having that release of tension just be at the end where they go, oh.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's
There's
definitely...
nothing wrong with having closure.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's definitely, like, also a good place to end the session, right? Like,
yeah, and I mean, the other thing is that with people's schedules, there's no way to know when you can end a session.
Right. Yeah.
You might have to end a session in the middle of a combat.
Yeah. You could.
Like someone get a call. It's like something came up and they got to go. And then like since you're in the middle of a combat and I personally never really feel comfortable playing my players' characters for them.
Yeah, sure.
I would just kind of have to end it there.
Yeah, it sucks, but it's definitely like it just depends on like the time that you're gonna like do it. Like if you can schedule it out to like have a certain amount of time from then to then, right? Then you know when you're gonna end the session, and maybe you can even plan out like the ending and have it be. But most of the time, it's kind of gonna be a bit more unpredictable, I would say. Because
I mean, I would say that the best ending that I've managed to get was immediately after Dis announced the death of Baphomet, and you guys went back to your place of business. And for those of you who haven't seen that, I won't spoil it. I think that was probably the best ending I've managed so far.
It was really cool. And we all were like, "Oh shit!" Yeah.
And then I was like, "And that's where we'll end it." And they're like, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So, and again, like,
sometimes you can do it, but
you can
always.
get that feeling of like, I want to come back for more, regardless of if it's, you know, that or if it's just a time of like, all right, and we go to bed, right? Like, I don't know,
because there's also that sense of satisfaction. It's like, man, we did really good that session. I can't wait to go back and do good again. You know?
Yeah, or like, we didn't do much that session. I hope we can do more next session, right?
Yeah.
Like it's definitely not a binary thing.
Yeah, it's really not.
There's a lot of different avenues.
The thing that can be kind of difficult, and I agree with him saying that at the end of a campaign, it shouldn't really be a happy ending.
Yes, that I agree with 100%.
Yes, because the nature of Call of Cthulhu is you will never, the best you can do is break even, and you're not going to break even.
Yeah. If you do, you're incredibly fortunate.
Yeah, you're just insanely lucky. Sometimes, though, that can actually be a little bit tricky. And now that he's brought that up, I realize that I didn't really actually think of how to make my campaign end on a, oh shit, this isn't it. Note.
I mean, to be fair, like, the fact that things exist is enough to go, fuck, right?
Yeah.
Like, you open up a whole new avenue of like, okay, so say, and I'll even use an example from like in what I'm thinking of for like Delta Green, right? With my version being more of just supernatural kind of stuff that isn't Lovecraftian. It's more like
werewolves and elves and orcs.
It's more
folklore.
Thank you. Yes, folklore. That's the word. It's definitely based in that kind of thing that folklore has been for many different cultures, many different things. There are things out there, and then once you find out that that's a thing, that changes everything.
Yeah.
Right? And so I would imagine it'd be the same for a Call of Cthulhu mythos thing, where these people, they've just gone through a thing, and it doesn't matter that if it's over one, they think it's done, like that's the case. Things like that are now, they exist, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a thing that has happened. And
that is a fact.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter, like, whether or not they take it and they go and think, like, they go like 7 years down the line and they just like think of it as a distant memory and hope that was just the only time. It still happened.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, because it's a good idea to do that, but sometimes it can be kind of difficult because,
absolutely.
Like, there are really, really wonderful examples where Cthulhu himself, in the actual Call of Cthulhu story,
right?
The guy receives the clay statue of Cthulhu, and he's like, "Oh man, this is some weird shit."
Yeah.
And then I actually forget the midpoint, but basically there are some sailors that wind up finding Relea or Reliach.
Yeah.
And then Cthulhu rises. One of them goes batshit, and he crashes his boat into him. And then Cthulhu's like, "Oh shit, it's a little bit early. I'm going back to bed."
Yeah. Very weird.
And so Cthulhu is defeated, Cthulhu is defeated, but all he does is he just goes back to sleep.
Yep.
And he will wake up again.
Yep.
Someday, when the stars are right.
Yep.
But there are some that they are, at least for the investigators, at least somewhat definitive, where it's like, they summoned Gatanathoa out of his volcano, and then they cast a spell and they send him back to the volcano where he is trapped once again, and they defeat the cult. And I guess the unhappy ending is just the knowledge that you didn't defeat him and he's just sealed away again.
Yeah,
and
someone else can find that out and bring him back.
It's hard to do that because you have, at least for the investigators, they won.
Yeah.
They won that battle. They're never going to win the war.
No.
I guess that's the best you can do.
Yeah,
really.
That's the thing. Is like, what I would say is, even if they were to, I don't know, take all of the information that they have found, like on the being, right? In whatever scenario, they take all the information the cultists gather, all of the information they can find in books and stuff, and try to like keep it safe, like seal it, basically.
Yeah.
Human error is still going to be a thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, and plus, they don't know if that's everything.
It's true.
Right? So it's definitely one of those things where it's like, yeah, you sealed them away in the volcano. Great. Another person could come across something and then just research, find more things, bring him back, do it again.
And
You've
then
done
who
it
knows
once.
if there's going to be anybody there to stop him that time.
Right, exactly. You've done it once. Can you do it again? Will you be able to? Is this going to be in your lifetime? Is this going to be, years down the line? When, like, are you
going to be like JoJo, where you have a descendant who has to deal with it now?
That's exactly where I was going to go. Are you going to tell your children about this and make them the future of defense against this? Yeah, exactly.
Which would be fucking sweet. Dude, I would love to see Star Platinum beat the shit out of Cthulhu. Holy shit. That'd be awesome.
So there's always going to be that little bit of dread, but there's always going to be that little bit of hope as well, And you've got to,
at least for the moment.
Exactly. For the moment, you can have the hope there, but then the dread will overtake it at some point of like, this will continue regardless of what I do. Right?
Yeah, it's like killing a devil in regular Dungeons and Dragons on the material plane. It might take him like you kicked him off the material plane for now, but he's going to be back in like 100 years.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're not going to be there to stop him that time. And he's got literally all the time in the world. He'll be back.
Yeah,
that's not good.
To give them the impression that they are just scratching the tip of the iceberg, that there is literally so much more in the universe beyond that they can't perceive, they can't control. If the things choose to take over their world, it's the absolute best way for you to end your game, because then you really drive home the idea of being just like a blip in time or a grain of salt in the ocean, as there's so much more going on around them that they will never understand, that they can never comprehend. And in the end, there is only the darkness or madness or nothingness that is left for them.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Hopefully you've got some ideas now when you come to run your Call of Cthulhu. I'd love to hear about the successes you've had in creating a Cthulhu game, or if you're a player, perhaps your GM has given you some fantastic scenarios where you've been just on the edge of your seat the whole time. I've actually really enjoyed this little break from the channel's usual content, and
Okay, yeah. So he's
You know, Bow of Ice doesn't really make any sense.
Shut up! It's magic ice.
Oh, is it magic ice? I didn't
think
actually
so.
realize.
I don't know.
I think it probably is.
It probably is. I don't fucking remember. You think I looked into
Because
the
like
lore?
as soon as you pull it, fuck.
exactly. But yeah, that was Drowbard.
Drowbard.
Not bad. Definitely had a couple of things, little hiccups.
Yeah, and I noticed that I was subscribed to him. However, in the entire time that I've been subscribed to him for however long, I've never seen him upload a video, so I'm pretty sure he doesn't do stuff anymore.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
Oh well. Well.
Oh well.
Let's see.
this is
His most recent video was a month ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, apparently. So.
That's weird.
All right. Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, no, that'll do it for us tonight. Yeah, we did pretty good.
Yeah, that's not bad.
All right. But yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.
Yeah.
Very much appreciate it. Do you have any final thoughts, my man?
Read your investigator's handbook. Because that has a lot of useful information that's not in the Keeper's handbook, which pisses me off.
Yeah.
How dare you have more information than me? Let's see. If you intend to make Call of Cthulhu your first RPG, know that if you want it to be... Let's see. How do I want to say this? If you want Call of Cthulhu to be your first RPG, know that it will not be easy to DM. It will be significantly easier to play, but it is not going to be easy to run because an inherently mystery/investigation game is vastly different to run than Dungeons and Dragons.
Absolutely.
Because if the game is built around investigations, then you're going to need to learn how to actually consistently write mysteries. And that's a whole different beast than just a story that takes place over time.
Mysteries themselves are much harder to write.
Yes, because you need to have motivations. You have to have a timeline. You need to have events happening on that timeline. You need to have physical barriers and ways to bypass them. You know, like the classic locked room mysteries, things like that.
Yep.
There are great videos on YouTube that teach you how to write mysteries. So if you intend to do Call of Cthulhu first, do that. Look into mysteries because it will really help you write it.
I would also say try modules.
Yes, try modules.
Modules first.
And if you are going to write a Call of Cthulhu game, write backwards. Do not write from the beginning. Write backwards.
That's a good idea.
Where instead of, let's see, in Call of Cthulhu, what you need to do is the first thing you need to decide is who is my big bad? Is it a cult? Is it an outer god? Or is it just a big badass monster? Or is it a race? Or is it a great old one? Then you need to say, what are they doing? What do they want? Usually with the great old ones and outer gods, it's actually pretty easy because they're very simple. Especially like Azathoth. Or even something like Yog-Sothoth can be pretty easy. Nyarlathotep would be the hardest one. With Yog-Sothoth, it's like, oh, he wants to merge all realities. Boom, done. Because he is like the center of all realities. And then you need to think, okay, how is he going to do it? Why does he want to do that? You got to work. You have to start at the end and work back, because that will really help you build the steps.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I've written my campaign. And so far, working backwards, the story is it is quite simple. It just has a lot of branches leading into it. Think of like a river that has a lot of tributaries.
Okay. Yep.
So they are all important to the whole, but they're all necessary for the whole.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, right backwards.
Yeah.
And
other than that, I would say if you want to do this, definitely get some supplemental reading.
Yes.
Read some of the works. I know they're super racist, but hey, you can deal.
But just know that if you enjoyed them, you are now racist.
Right, exactly.
And especially if you like the role-playing game, then you're racist.
Yes, absolutely. If you start playing Call of Cthulhu, you're a big racist.
Yes. Hitler blushes at your level of racism. I should know. I talk with Hitler all the time on this podcast.
Right, exactly. But yeah, definitely do that, and I would say also to just try to be a player first.
Yes.
Experience that. I would honestly say that for any role-playing game. Just try to be a player first, because then you get that perspective, and then you can look into the actual running and stuff. D&D is really easy to run, regardless of if you're a player or not. So it's a little different, but for something like Call of Cthulhu, I would definitely say try to be a player first.
There was one other thing. Oh shit, I had it like literally 3 seconds ago.
Oh yeah.
Oh come on, it was a good one too. What were we just talking about? Being a player.
Being a player.
Yep. What was before that?
Before that was reading.
Reading supplemental books.
Yeah.
Damn it, I don't remember. Fuck.
All right.
Hate that.
Well, nah, you're fine. So, that brings us to the end here. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All the new subs, really appreciate it. Hope you're enjoying. Again, we are found on YouTube first at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Fridays with this podcast, and our Devils and Dice campaign that we've been doing for 13 sessions, going on 14, is uploaded on Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on this YouTube channel. You can then find also the podcast again at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on podcasting services, or around there, really. You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram at TableTalk D&D. Links will be in the description, as well as our Discord, which you can join and chat, and we'll look at you and chat with you every now and again. Also linked in the description, and you've seen it on the video itself. Other than that, I think that's everything. Yeah, I think so.
I think so.
So yeah, thanks again, and we'll see you in the next one.
Raid Shadow Legends.
Fuck. Bye for now.
Yep. Oh man.